I will call the meeting to order on this beautiful, almost springtime day. I think we're all glad to see the sun. I'm very happy that all the ice melted off of my roof without any problems so far. We will start the meeting with our moment of reflection. Okay, and I will read our Indigenous acknowledgement statement. So we'd like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards of the land. The municipality is located within the boundary of Treaty 18, region of 1818, which is the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples. Now we do not have any members of the public, so no need to acknowledge that. And I will start with an approval of the agenda. So we do have one item to add to the agenda. It is the 20. I think you did add it though, right? Yes.
Not
No.
to this one, but the 2025 draft budget.
The 2025 draft budget, which we've already seen, but we're gonna take another look at it because we were missing a formal approval of the budget. So we're adding that under organizational excellence, where we discuss the Q4 2024 budget, the 2025 town budget, and our 2025 budget. So with that, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Carol, seconded by Chris. Do we have any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Okay, and we have some reports to be received as information. I'd also like to point out that we have on our agenda under F3 is a protocol for receiving staff reports. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, just in terms of the process and what do we do when we make changes, etc. So can I have a mover and a seconder that we receive these items? Marie?
Can I just ask a
Yes.
question? Sorry, just do we need to receive the budget as information first or no? I have no idea.
It's not a report.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, thanks. Sorry. Marie's moved. I'll second.
Yeah, we are gonna talk about this whole process of reports and this whole section on receiving and what do we do with that, etc.
It's a bit confusing.
Yeah. We all did once we started really thinking about it. Okay,
Because later on, we get them and discuss them, so.
yeah. All in favor?
Carried.
I may have forgotten to say all in favor for the agenda, did I?
You did forget, but it's.
We're all in favor.
All in favor?
Yeah, but no.
All right, we're gonna move on to previous minutes, and we have the minutes of January 16th, as well as the minutes of February 13, which was the committee of the whole.
The one thing I forgot to modify was, Joanne, you had an addition to the February minutes. I believe something to do with formatting.
Yeah, it's really not material.
Okay.
What do you want to?
I mean, it was, I literally was just gonna add in formatting, the word formatting, but it really doesn't matter. Like it's,
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
all right, so I'll leave that.
yeah. Like I said, it's not material.
Now, are these the minutes where you noticed that we actually hadn't approved the 2025 budget?
No, it was I don't think it was here. Somewhere it was stated about the approved budget. And then I had the question of, in my head, it hadn't been approved, so that's why I went down
And that's why it's
the
on the
rabbit hole of
agenda.
why it's on the agenda. So these minutes are correct, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can just clarify that point too, and Franz, you don't necessarily have to capture this in the minutes. But when I had went back, Joanne, you were right. So in October, when the draft budget had originally come to the board had just received it. There was no motion to actually approve the budget. But there were comments in terms of amendments, so to increase the library board's training budget from $2,000 to $2,500, which has been changed. And then Lori had also asked to have further clarity that the deficit was being funded by the surplus reserve. So the budget that I had sent out maybe about an hour ago includes those changes, so we can look at that when we get to that item on the agenda. So those changes are reflected in the budget. It's just a matter of actually approving it. And then there will be a discussion about whether or not the board wants to include the replacement of the name sign at Ellie Shore. I do have 2 quotes now, so I have an idea of exactly how much that would cost, should the board want to move forward with that. And I did remove the line from the risk assessment report that suggested that the budget was approved, so that was taken out.
Maybe that was where I've seen it somewhere.
Yeah.
One of these documents has it in, yeah. Anyway, yeah, good.
Okay, so, was there any other comments or, questions about the minutes? And Carol, you had provided some feedback, I'm just stepping back for a minute on the, was it the risk assessment?
The risk assessment.
Yeah, and those changes have been.
Okay,
I made some.
Yeah.
We can look.
Yeah,
because I assumed what I had suggested was true, but
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I have a mover for the approval of the minutes of January 16th and February 13th? We'll do those together.
As circulated.
Yeah, Carol and Chris, all in favor?
well done, Julia.
Thank you. All right, and there is no business arising from the minutes, though, again, that's kind of we have items on the agenda that we're talking about, that we've talked about before, so that's sort of another area where we're really not utilizing that section, and maybe just fine to leave it and never use it, but anyway, there's a point. So we have no deputations. We haven't received any public input?
No.
No correspondence? Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on and we're gonna have a good discussion on the 2025 draft action plan. There's been lots of really good work done, and I'm gonna ask that Joanne take the lead in explaining. She's been the key driver
We
of.
collated all of it's been a huge team effort. We're in a great place, I think. So, yeah, just to kind of recap. So as we look at the action plan, and we've been thinking about, so obviously why we re-looked at the format, I think, was we felt that the previous format had a lot of tactics in it. We weren't sure what we're board, what we're CEO, et cetera, et cetera. So we say, well, what's like the purpose or the goal of the plan is like a clear articulation of our priority actions, and for both board and staff. And then also it provides the means of reviewing those priorities at various meetings or however often we're reviewing them. So the first stage, I'm just going through what's happened. So Jen obviously brought the OKRA template, which I love, and I think in that perspective of context, which is really, really important. I really like it because it's like, yes, it's space, it's security, it's delivery of our services, et cetera. So I just think I like that. And the first draft actions. And then we as a board discussed them. We identified and probably agreed on like 95% of the objectives and actions. And then Carol sent out here's a visual representation, color coded, and taking the tactics and saying, okay, this is what goes under the objectives or the results, which was really helpful. Then Julie and I just took all of that and collated it into the document. The layout is more similar to what Jen had started with the OKRA. So we haven't changed any of the main approach or the content. There's some, and I'll explain some that we sort of tweaked. But so what we have here is a collated version that we, certainly want everybody's input on, and I think we're really close to it. So this first page is just high-level summary of the objective statement. Sorry, the first page is the context, which has not changed. The next page here is, this is just high level. So we have our objective under community hubs to ensure the MPL keeps pace with growth and community needs. And I'm just going to go through because we tweaked some, just so we're clear. Implement the top 2 to 3 priority space improvement items identified in the accessibility audits and gap analyses. We combined, there were 2. One was under space and one was accessibility. So we just combined them because they really are part of a larger actions. And the council supports that, has not changed. Then services, so strengthening awareness and support of our role in the community. None of those have changed. Sorry, not none of those have changed. This one in particular, the only thing we had underneath it was track under some of them. I think one of them was in terms of the services, was tracking them. So I've expanded those, but I'll get to those. So these high level key result areas, I'm going to get the terms right. These have not changed. Sorry.
So are we going to discuss this now, or you want to go through it, or?
I'll go through it after, if that, or sorry, no, you can throw it in now.
Well, just like, so the key results that you have are just 2. But I think, so those are the only 2 we're going to have under that? Is that what you're suggesting, or?
If we,
Today, that's all.
today, but so what you can see, the next page, what you'll see is the initiatives. So we'll go through the initiatives. I'm just talking about the high level objectives.
Okay, because you notice when I did this here, I put the 4 across.
Yep.
So, the charitable status receipt, because we initially had that pulled out as a key result.
Yes, so we have, what we've done is, sorry, I forgot about that one. We moved that into organizational.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not gone.
Because I think that's a good standalone.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where it is, but I think it should be a key result.
So, yes, so we
Yeah.
put it under as a tactic, so we see it.
Yeah,
Bottom,
it's a
we put it under,
It's a tactic.
yeah, so I'm just, you know what, let me just whip
let her
through
go
at the
through.
high level.
Yeah,
These
go
are just
through,
the high
yeah.
level, and then I think what we have moved some things around, some of them became initiatives. as
Okay,
opposed to
okay.
results,
But we can, yeah.
We're totally, again, this is
Yeah.
just the collation and there's gonna be more thought and if things don't make sense, this is our talk about them. Yeah, so then on organizational excellence, so there were 3, privacy, information, cybersecurity, and AI were 1, and then safety protocols were another, and just felt it might be easier to have all like training and policy development under 1 action. Again, we can split them out. And then number 2, which we may have more conversation around, is that was really about the financial discussions with the town finance officer. But then as Julie and I were talking, really there's sort of a broader result that we need, which is really formalizing plan and reporting routines and a multi-year financial outlook, especially since our major goal will require capital, and we're looking at, so we just sort of thought we would, so when we get to that, we can talk through a little bit more if that makes sense. Okay, so then, so if we jump into the first one, which is community hubs, this has not changed. Sorry, I tried to note on, again, we just combined all of the audits and analyses together. So we need the audit of the accessibility audit. We need the space utilization study. And then, really, from a key initiative, it's about the overall action plan, including the capital and funding needs. Because we just had this as updating the gap analysis, but really it's about, we need a full plan. The plan may go over multi-years, but we need the full plan, and then that updates those priorities. So it's just kind of like a higher level up, and then you're gonna have action plans underneath it.
Yeah, one of the things that sort of becoming aware, sort of more on the top of my mind is, and Jen and I had a quick talk about this earlier, is we can't put all of our eggs in the MRFA basket, right? So we really need to have a plan about what do we want to see at this site? Because there's probably a fair bit that is within our control. Like, we have funding in the development charges, we know we would need to get, obviously town approval, but, you know, we have a lot of needs. They're not going away. We keep identifying new opportunities and needs. And we want to make this a focus, for this year, for our action plan. Is really, you know, we've completed the accessibility audit, or Jen has. The space utilization study, Joanne had a really good point about maybe some of the underutilization in the back, and you were totally agreed, right? So I think we're all on board for some sort of a study of, okay, what have we got? What areas are, obviously office space is a huge priority, but are there other areas where maybe with some renovations, we could create a team room or something?
Year one could be, it could be a reorientation of space.
Yeah,
Year two could be, you know, okay, we're gonna actually buy some glass to glass in an area, like, who knows? But
Yeah.
But just what can we do with?
But
that
you're
space?
talking about it within the current footprint.
Within the current footprint, to
Or-
say, is there, or maybe there isn't, maybe it's.
Oh, so this is what the study, this
This
is what the
is-
space
yeah,
utilization.
yeah,
But it shows our willingness to start small and grow
Yeah.
gradually instead of asking for the moon.
exactly.
Yeah.
And well, we'll wait forever for the moon. Yeah. Yeah. And within,
And MRFA is going to slow that whole moon
I know,
desire
yeah.
down,
Well, yeah, I think
whether we
anytime-
want it to
yeah,
or not.
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
community needs that we would like to be.
And of course, we still would love a new library, a new branch somewhere, but in the meantime, how do we address that?
So will that also include the depot as well?
No, though the accessibility audit is
Yeah.
of both, but that could be simultaneous or,
It would depend where we take the funding to, because we have a reserve for non-growth related items that has just over $70,000 in it. And it can be used for, space feasibility studies. But would $70,000 cover both facilities?
Yeah.
Likely not, I wouldn't think. So I would say the priority is probably Ellie Shore. It's our
Yeah.
busiest, it's our main branch.
Yeah.
I mean, there are accessibility things that need to be done there.
Yeah, and when we get to the accessibility audit of CHD too, I'll speak to some of there are a lot of things we could do differently there, but we have to keep in mind it is a historical building.
Yeah, there's probably.
So
Are
there's
we
some
then saying
limitations.
that we're not gonna look at enlarging our current footprint? You had suggested we stick with this footprint, but
I think we
Not-
could be open to like the courtyard and,
well, we still have that lot here, so.
right,
Yeah, sorry, we're not saying that we absolutely know we need more, like,
Space, yeah.
absolutely more square footage. There's no question that we need it. It's just if we, you know, because of how long it's gonna take to get there, the question is, what can we do now to optimize, like, are there things we can do to
Well, I guess
optimize the
I'm wondering
space we
what-
have?
What would be faster, waiting for Mercer would be 20 years.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Whereas maybe going out, whichever way we go out,
Yeah.
would be a lot less.
Yeah.
and as
So I guess
long as it
there's-
could, whatever we, like, right now, we have $3 million, right? In the development charges that we would
Yeah.
need approval for.
Mhm.
So obviously, if we can't plan a $10 million expansion without town approval. right?
Right.
But there may be, you know, the courtyard, for example, is there something that could be done there?
So, but the space utilization study it would be good maybe if it looked at a couple options.
Yeah.
So within the current footprint, here's what you can do.
Yeah.
If you cover the courtyard and include it in as internal space, here's what you can do. So there's some options like that.
Mhm.
Well, particularly if you're taking it to town council and they might throw more money in. I don't know where it from, but.
Yeah. Yeah, so a subtask of completing the space utilization study would be determine the focus and, you know, so which buildings are we looking at? Are we looking at just within the current footprint or both footprint? And if we had the space there, what would we do with it? So I think those are to be determined and then sort of next steps, but we know that there is that, I would say we are not saying that we don't need expansion, we know that. We're just kind of, what can we do now?
We knew that in two
What
thousand
can we
seven.
do? Yeah,
Yeah.
we've known that for a long
Yeah.
time, so just to be responsible to the community, I think it's about what can we do now? Maybe then in the next 2 years, and then we talked about this, and then if MRFA's like 20 years away, that's a whole other ball.
So I would be very supportive of the space utilization study if it's looking at some options. So if it's looking within the current footprint and then expanding the footprint. Because what I don't want to do is go to council with, here's a solution within the existing footprint. And they go, hey, good, you're done. It costs us $3 million, yay. And we know that that won't meet our future needs.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. It's,
It's a very good.
if you have 3 million, you could do, you know, only this.
Yeah.
It would be, yeah.
And the wonder you wait those 3 million, I gotta do.
I was gonna say,
No.
today it's worth about 1.5.
But showing our fiscal
Yeah.
responsibility that if we do adapt something in here, then it's not going to be dismantled when we add on. It has to be something that progressive building, like Lego, right? We add on to it.
Yeah.
In a
That's like the
sensible.
Lego analogy.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
And it also gets back to this point that, you know, we've raised throughout the last couple of years, I think, since we started our term, which is we can't go ask for more until we know we've really optimized what we've got. So I think a space utilization study, like, it's good on so many levels.
But the utilization of what we have is a stopgap until we get to where we want to go.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
So except we
That's
hope that
good.
the
So you're
stopgap would
supportive of
be.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Problem is, you don't have.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. Now I have this comment here, determine what areas of funding need count. Oh, yes. So then as we look at the plans and we look at the sources of funds, just being clear on what we can say yes to right away or what council needs. That was just, the comment section is so that we can flag ourselves as we're looking.
I can speak more to that too when we go over the Q4
Oh, yeah,
financials and sort of the reserve funds. I can sort of give a brief overview of, okay, what can we use certain things for? Do we need council's approval or is it within
Yeah, perfect.
the board's approval?
Perfect. Okay, so then key result number 2 is council support space improvements. So I don't believe any of these have changed. We said actively engage counselors about library services and opportunities. Communities now and in the future, that's us. Formal presentation to council, and we just said as opportunities present themselves. So there are different times that we'll want to. And then we've said, obviously, actively participating in the multi-use assessment committee.
Actually, we did make the change to the wording of the key result because
Oh,
it had just said expansion, council supports expansion. And we thought, well, wait a minute, maybe, you know, just following on, like,
right.
yeah, so we added the space improvements and or expansion. We're not backing off on the need for an expansion, but it's like Marie, you said, you know, we want to see what we can do within our current means.
A lot of this language seems a lot more realistic.
Yeah, yes.
Want to make sure things are achievable. That's the other thing.
You want to just take the or right out of there?
Sorry?
Because you have slash and or.
Does that imply that we'll take the space improvements or we'll go straight to expansion?
Just take the or out.
Thank you, Maureen.
Yeah.
Space improvements and expansion.
Okay.
Yeah, because we know there will be. that's true, it's a good point.
I think that, but if we leave it like that, then it's.
It looks like it's an option.
I think
Yeah.
space
Yeah.
shouldn't be capitalized or
Sorry, you're right, yeah.
make
But if it
changes.
said, but if it were reversed, if it was support expansion or, and or space improvements, that would imply that we wouldn't choose.
Expansion.
Yeah, so it's good in that order, that it's space improvements and expansion. Or space improvements or expansion.
I think we need to do space improvements, period. Right?
Yeah, maybe and to make it clear in case. there's-
So I think and, because we know for sure there will be expansion
Yeah.
recommendations.
Because we don't want one or the other, we want both.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the or implies
How about-
one or the other.
Council supports space improvements leading to expansion, or as a first, as a beginning, maybe let's do it.
I think, yeah, so I think, right, so what do we need at the end of the year? I just keep saying, is it like, are we going to have a formal expansion recommendation at the end of the year?
That would be wonderful.
So I'm not, I don't know, we're gonna have that ready, I guess, if we will,
We've been
then our
leaning
goal
towards
is,
it for
yeah,
a couple
then,
of years
so then our
now.
goal is to have improvement and expansion, you know, here's
Yeah.
phase 1, 2, and 3, and having that in front, and our goal is that they approve it.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I mean,
This
if
is,
we want to be even more vague, we can take out the recommendations and just say council supports space improvements and expansion. And then if we get there supporting the concept of an expansion at the end of the year, we still met that. I mean, that's really easy.
the question is, what do we want to hold ourselves to? Actually getting a resolution from
This
them?
is ours, yeah.
Yeah, this is
So will
really,
we be in a position at the end of the year to make recommendations?
Yes.
To council on, here's how we see the building expanding?
I think
I think we should be.
yeah,
Yeah.
so.
because next year is the year before the end of all of our
Yeah.
terms and the election, the
All
counselors.
of
And then you're
the,
gonna have to start all over again.
Yeah.
the only thing would be if, should the board move forward with, like a space feasibility sort of study, council may want to see that before making a decision. I don't think that would be completed by the end of the year.
Our space
realistically.
study, the utilization study can be done.
I
I
think
think
we
we
need
should
a
go-
full building.
Yeah, like if we're getting consultants to work
Yeah.
on some sort of study to have it completed, then
Yeah.
approved by the board
Yeah.
and then a presentation to council.
We're talking calendar year, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And we're into March already.
yeah, so I think if
Like,
that.
we could be ready, but it's also a matter of getting that on their agenda, cause it could get
Yeah.
pushed pending.
Because I think what we're saying, if we say and expansion recommendation, then we're asking for both, which you're right, they'll ask, well, what exactly, how much are we talking? I don't know that they'll know exactly by then.
So I think it would be.
Or instead of council supports, we could say, our result is that we present
Yeah,
to council
Recommendations.
recommendations. So we're not acting for, we're not committed to getting their support.
The problem is,
I don't know, are we
I
just
think
missing
we
words? We know
should
what
try
we're-
really hard to get their support, because next voting, you're gonna have a
Yeah.
new, potentially new
Yeah,
council.
yeah.
Then you're starting your education all over again.
Yeah, they'll say, well, let them decide.
let's keep it as a goal, and if it
Yeah,
if we
doesn't
don't
get
do it,
done,
we'll-
we'll be red and we'll say,
I'll
but
just-
we can get on the.
Okay, okay.
But we agree to take the or
Okay,
out.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I got the lower things down.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, good.
Okay, so we had before in here applied for at least one new funding source.
So we've moved that into, organization.
Yeah, we moved all the funding related things
Yeah,
there, because it just made more,
in that, I think, because we don't know that we're going to need the funding for the funding might count for different
Yeah, okay.
goals, so anyway, we can move that.
I like that you kept my color.
Yes, the colors were helpful, very helpful.
I like it too.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah, visual is
yeah,
important, yeah.
okay, and so empowering services. Again, strength and awareness, so key result 1 is improve awareness of the MPL as a valuable community resource. In brackets, we have through in-person and media exposure. We were just talking about how to measure this improved awareness. And I think media exposure is probably our best proxy as opposed to, because the satisfaction survey talks about frequency. But somebody, people are aware of the library, they just may not come in, and that's a whole, so we feel that media exposure, and I put in person, because I think we are tracking, these are just thoughts from metrics later, but we are tracking how many people, so we can say we've had so many visitors, we're having an increase, so we know actual people have been here, and we know we've reached certain people through media, so.
Yeah, we do need to, define the measures.
Yes,
But
sorry,
we wanted to make sure that the framework that makes sense, and we've got the key targets right, and then we can figure out, well, how do we how do we measure that? Does that make sense?
I can just say that whatever you're doing, Jen, is working because I've been meeting a few people lately, many from Collingwood area. And somehow they've been coming to our library and they are so positive about it all. So whether it's social media or Collingwood Today or whatever else, or just people they know when they come in, there's a positive impression out there with a lot of people. I know we still have gaps with some people, so it's a work in progress, but it is getting up.
yeah, but it's good to know that people who you didn't
Yeah.
think knew about the library are
And
like,
even
oh, I'm in there.
people that I wouldn't expect,
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know if maybe this falls under somewhere else in the draft action plan, but having our presence in other strategies or plans within the town.
Mhm, mhm.
And I'll speak a little bit to that when we get to the tourism strategy update, but and maybe it doesn't fall specifically under, but to me, that's awareness. If you have consultants or even staff and council looking at the larger picture and understanding where the library actually falls into bigger strategy, like, hey, we are here, and they're acknowledging that we're here. I don't know if that.
It does come under the result 3.
Yeah, I
I
was gonna
think
say,
captures it.
yeah,
Part.
which is.
But you're right, you're absolutely right.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So these haven't changed. The only thing I just tweaked about the cultural map resource instead, because the item said to create a printed version, not that that's not a good idea. I just realized, like, ultimately what we want is increased accessibility.
Use of it, yeah.
So I didn't want to limit the initiative to just printing, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you have other
Yeah.
ideas or whatever, and that's great.
That's a
That
great
makes
point.
sense.
And then visibility has not changed. So
Why is town staff in red?
it wasn't in there before.
Oh, okay.
I just assume that they're going to participate, that we'll try to
Yeah.
collaborate with them on our celebration. Sorry.
Yeah.
I tried to put in red and then I got lost where I changes, sorry.
You did an awesome
Oh
job.
my God, no, you and I sit there for hours. It's so helpful.
So I like
Did
the
read this?
status, the red, green, yellow status, that's good.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
that,
I
the
really
other
like that.
process approach, whether or not it's here or just at the front. Again, it's just so that, we'll just
Yeah, no,
side
that's good.
discussion on that we
Yeah.
can say, oh, okay, let's focus on the red stuff right
Yeah,
now.
no, that's
Yeah.
very good project management.
Because we used to just have, completed,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And like, let
Yeah,
them
yeah.
tell us,
no,
yeah,
Yeah.
Journey,
Okay,
not a destination.
yes.
so we increase use of GLAM services. This the only item we had was track use of services. And so again, because essentially this is what we do. This is your plan.
Mhm.
And so I just kept it high level. It's like develop and implement the programming plan for Ellie Shore, for the gallery, for Craiglee Station, and then service tracking and reporting. So essentially, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I felt that the plan should reflect that. Should have, like, we need to say, we're delivering the services.
Right.
This is not about do these 20 million things.
Right, and the board doesn't have to see the plan.
We don't, we
Right.
don't, but you can highlight, so this opportunity means that, oh, okay, so Ellie Shore, we're doing really well, or we tried this program and it didn't just, so we're just high level
I like that.
touching on them.
Yeah, this is good, because we didn't have anything under there before.
Yeah, it was just the tracking,
Yeah,
and there was.
and I just put that in because.
There was nothing.
There was nothing in
Okay, good, yeah, so I still think having, you know, the tracking reporting routine, so anyway.
But
yeah,
you've got
so
that on the
that's-
last one, develop program
Yeah.
and service tracking, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I might add programming and outreach, but.
Yeah,
Same,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, no, I'm.
Every
this is
time
great.
we can say outreach, I think it's good. Okay, then number 3 is increased participation in town initiatives, so this is what you were talking about, is actively collaborate, IDEA, MRFA. Don't know if you had tourism strategy in there before, but we've
Can
talked
you
about it.
just exit the recording has started, Jen? Like, just close that box?
I can't see it on my screens. Where is it here? That's why I didn't realize it was up there.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Driving a little crazy.
You know me and my OCD.
Okay, yeah, so that's the same, and then number 4 is the same as well, about participation in community advocacy efforts, so
Wait, where are you?
this is.
Oh, yeah, key result 4.
Number 4, so actively participating in and collaborating with community groups such as the Craigleith Community Working Group and the BMRA. Those are activities we are to do.
So do we have, for release the balloon, do we have key messaging anywhere? Because we had that as an activity, we were gonna, especially with the increased participation with advocacy groups, we were gonna have a set of key messages.
Yeah, so in my mind, is that a key result or is that an activity we do towards our advocacy?
Yeah, I think
I'm
it is an
open to
activity
having
we do towards the key result.
Okay,
So the same as participating.
Yeah.
Because it's something that we're gonna have to do and it's gonna be a finished product, so we might as well add it. Yeah,
so we'll add it down here.
yeah,
Yeah, okay, key
Okay.
result is,
Okay.
yep, develop key messages.
yeah. And then when you're actively participating in these groups, you're talking with the town or
You've
whatever.
got your
Your
cheat sheet.
Key
Yeah,
messages for,
your taglines or whatever you want to call them.
okay, yep,
Communication quick course.
great,
Your elevator
Elevator.
speech.
Yeah, that's it.
perfect. Okay, yeah, pull that back up.
Okay, that's good.
All right. Organizational excellence. Last color. So the rationale, I remember, security is also a challenge, just wasn't in there, and it's something we talked about.
And resilience, was that Carol's word first? Organizational resilience?
No, that was,
I think that was mine.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
that was from the plan.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Oh,
because
okay.
we played around with growth. I think we talked about growth, or I can't remember. But anyway, I love the word resilience.
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
so great.
It really says
Oh,
so many things.
succession planning. I think we talked about, we mentioned succession planning. Anyway, that was where it came from. It's awesome. It's a good word. Okay, so again, here, this is all the training that needs to be done with the staff. I didn't change anything,
I think combining those two is really good.
just so, because they're all actions. Sorry, that's my son, and he'll stop because his father will say, she's in a meeting, don't call her.
So I
So-
thought that the staff safety protocol sort of just stood out there by itself. So I like the combination of those two.
Yes, yeah, okay, yeah, so they're all key initiatives.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And they all fit within resilience.
Yep.
They do,
Right,
yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
this is the training for number 1.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's definitely resilience. And then number 2, so this, I put the wording in there, it's hard to see, but it was develop a financial strategy with the town
Okay, so
finance team.
Was that what you crossed
Sorry, no,
out?
Two.
Before we leave the other.
Sorry,
ones,
wait
Yeah.
a minute, yeah.
I would just say we take that by October 1st because nobody else has a date.
Oh.
Mm.
Yeah, I think Jen, you're being good at trying to make.
Yeah.
We can hold it to, like informally, we can hold you to it, but I don't think we need to put that specific date.
Good point.
In my mind, all of these are by the end of the year, they're done. Hopefully they're done sooner.
Yeah,
If we have
that's
a
what
deadline, we can put it in.
Well, that's why we have our red, green and yellow.
Okay.
And, you know, the other thing is AI is changing so quickly that, I'm like not at all disturbed that we haven't done that, because I think if we'd done it, we'd be redoing it.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and sorry, Jen, I just wanted to clarify because I did. So develop an AI policy, it was just general, and I've just put in for staff and library users. I don't know if that's the intent. I just want to be clear.
I would
or is
probably
it
take
just for
library
staff?
users, I would take out.
Okay, okay.
for staff, like what kinds of things will be in it, just high level, like?
So some of it will actually be a little bit procedural, but it'll probably, like, some policies I've looked at so far identify like which AI tools are actually suitable for the workplace. But then there'll be, you know, things about not putting any personal information into an AI tool, that sort of thing. So it's making sure staff understand how to ethically use AI so that it doesn't put the organization at risk.
And so why aren't we, including users, patrons?
Because I don't think that we can really police how library users are using AI, or like, we don't police what they do on the computers, apart from the fact, obviously, if someone's watching, I don't know, pornographic material, then we can ask them to shut it off. Or
Are there
shut the computer
screens?
down.
Are there,
Like privacy screens?
no, are there, protocols so that you, even if you tried to log on to something?
We have very minimal filters, and that's, like, we worked with IT on
Yeah.
establishing a balance, because obviously corporate IT has a very different approach to access to the internet than a library does. For the most part, we don't filter, like, unless it's I can't remember all of the filters we have in place, but it's very much, you know, if it's not a legitimate site, there's ways that the filter can block certain material from being accessed, but for the most part, we don't block a lot.
Okay.
But we can always change that. And there may be even there were certain filters too that we agreed to under the premise that, you know, if someone came in to actually access information they needed for like a good reason and weren't able to, then we can submit that back to IT and they can unblock the site.
Right.
But in terms of like AI tools, there would really be nothing.
Although I
blocked.
do, well, you can, so Copilot is automatically there, but you can decide not to use it. So I
Yeah.
just think from a policy perspective.
Yeah.
We should think about, so for library, are we not blocked? So that is a policy. We are not blocking AI tools. But if there are some that we feel put the library at risk, do automatically gather data about the library computers that we don't want there. Like,
Yeah.
I just feel like maybe there is, we should in our policies include whether we are or not.
Okay.
From a public, in the same way that we say whether we are or we are not blocking what our IT use of the internet is, because now the use of the internet includes AI tools.
Yeah.
Might be,
Although it
yeah, and
we said it's changing constantly, so it might be early days. And I think next year already there will be differences, so again, this is 25, we'll have another 26 plan.
Yeah.
So some of that might be appropriate for 26.
Yeah, I absolutely, I'm thinking about as we think through the policy.
No, I
Whether
understand.
it, you know, I feel like we should include consideration for library users, because it is all part of using the internet and what our policies are for them.
We should be supporting them with, and I think they have, you know, like the Wired Wednesdays.
Yes, there have already been, like Ashley's already done.
Yeah.
Some Wired Wednesdays on the topic. Staff have been trained on the use of AI, ethical use of AI. The town is developing a policy, but we're gonna develop our own, not
Mhm.
necessarily in isolation. I have seen
Mhm.
what they've started to put together. But I think where I'm struggling the most, and it's just a matter of I have to do more research, is incorporating the art part of it. So people who want to submit AI generated art into our art exhibits.
Mm.
And in our February art show, we did have an artist submit AI generated art. And so it was just a conversation with the artist about what the process was and asking all of the, sort of ethical questions about copyright. But that I think will become more of a occurrence, I guess, when people are submitting their proposals.
Plagiarism.
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily.
They've got a new, I was just reading an article this morning, that I think it was distributed by the owner of, OpenAI, ChatGPT. That they've got a new creative writing. And they probably have it in art too, but like, it's phenomenal, like, it's frightening.
It is frightening. It is very frightening.
The rapidity of change. And so I read this AI generated article and all they had asked it to do was talk about, loneliness and grief. And oh my gosh, it was so well done. Like, it is frightening.
You can actually do an AI novel. You can say, write a novel about this and give them very, very minor plot points in the style of Stephen King.
Yeah.
And then you will get a novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like Stephen King wrote,
Yeah. And art probably as well,
which
right?
is scary.
Yeah.
But it's pulling material that already exists. Like I listened to a podcast by
That's true.
an educator, and she supports other teachers and was talking about AI. And she said when she does, she uses ChatGPT. I use GPT a lot to create personalized sentences for my students. Create a sentence at a grade 5 level that's on a dinosaur theme, blah, blah, blah. And it works. I still have to tweak it a lot.
Yeah.
But she said sometimes when she's using ChatGPT or something else, it'll be her materials that she's already posted online. That it's amount like aggregating. Those are her words that she put somewhere on the internet that they're putting.
But then someone else can do that and have access to all of her.
Mhm, exactly. So the original source is somebody else's. It's like there's no magical.
Well, actually, I think
See,
that
it
is
makes it up.
changing. From what I was reading, I think it's getting so smart, it can actually, like, building on it, it's like we all learn, right? So it's learning, which
Yeah.
is, anyway. Sorry,
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of artists who copy Van Gogh
Yeah.
style, but
So would you
back to
have-
policies.
Would you have known it was created through artificial intelligence when you saw the art? And the person just said, this is how it was done, or? Like, how did you know that they didn't do it
I
themselves?
think they openly said that it was AI generated.
But did it look, like, was it like a computer printout kind of look, or was it
I
like an
want to
oil
say-
painting?
I want to say no, like, I don't think it was, Franz, just
Yeah,
because
Franz.
Franz was on the call.
Yeah.
Even if you type, whether or not you're comfortable unmuting, could you tell that it was AI generated?
Yes, I think if you took like a really close look at it, I think at first glance you'd be like, that's like an interesting texture. But then the closer you got to it, you'd be like, oh, that's obviously computer generated.
Can you quickly to speak to, when you were asking questions about the process, what was the artist's response again? High
Yeah,
level.
so yeah, when we talked about it, she just wanted to make sure that we were comfortable in what our kind of policies were, and obviously we didn't have any at the time. But we kind of just walked through like what AI did you use, what are the rights that AI grants you. We had to make sure that we listed it a certain way, so we were very transparent in like the title card of the pieces, that it said this has been created with the assistance of AI. She actually has quite the process of when, like this particular artist, when she created the work, it was a whole process. She would go through AI and spend a few hours finding the right images through the AI system. And then she would take that and put it into like a whole new imaging editing software, and she'd do like extra work on it. So there was like it was like an incredible whole process.
Yeah, like there was a creative process. It
Yeah,
wasn't just,
yeah.
can you generate blah, blah. and
Yeah.
then-
Yeah.
Which was interesting. And when
Yeah.
Franz had explained it, thank you, Franz, at the time, I can never remember all the details. We thought, well, sure, that can be included. But to articulate that properly in a policy, and I think there probably will be, should the board pass a policy that allows AI generated art, that might be like a contentious subject pending. You know,
Yeah,
some artists may
yeah.
think that's not a creative process, but it's,
Yeah.
I guess at the discretion of.
I think that's why I believe it's important that we have a policy. And our policy has to be as nonpartisan as a library is, in
Yeah.
recognizing that some people see it as part of the process, some people don't. So, you know, I mean, I think a lot of places are just coming to we are going to fully disclose where AI has been used. So, because frankly, I can decide if I want to read a book generated by AI or not. But I want to know whether it has. Don't try and pass it off to something that hasn't or whatever. So I think that's where we're landing, but I do think it's important that we have, yeah. You're right, it's gonna change, but something
Well,
to
I'm
guide
thinking
decisions.
even further down than just, whether it's AI generated art or thinking, now looking at manpower and roles and things too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
All of it will
the
evolve.
robots, right?
Yeah.
They've been trying to get those in
What
hospitals.
am I thinking of
for
the
years.
Matrix?
What did you say, Carol?
Okay,
I'm thinking of the Matrix.
Oh, yes, yes.
okay, so policies to come.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I think we should have a policy though. I agree.
That might be something to get input too from, the art council, I can imagine a very, active meeting.
Yeah.
Like,
Actually, that would be a very good idea. Yeah.
the guy, I would, what would your husband say, He's an artist.
He is an artist. I don't know what he would say. He
but you're
doesn't
also
like the
looking
fact.
at students and if they're doing homework.
Yeah.
Well, apparently there's a test you can put something through to see whether it was AI too.
Yeah, well,
Well, that there has been, but I don't know going forward if
It's
it's,
changing.
Yeah,
yeah, anyway,
okay, work to be done.
so you were on the
Okay,
next one
so we're
about
on,
the
yes,
change.
okay, so key result 2, which did read, develop a financial strategy with the town's finance team to improve long-term sustainability. As we were talking through what needed to happen, I think Julie and I sort of vetted out, it's really, it's more than just the finance, or how do you get to the
More than just the
financial
town
outlook?
too.
And it's more than just the town, so I don't know if this is all the way to right on how we describe the result, but that we formalize annual plan and reporting routines, including metrics, and develop a multi-year financial outlook, and routines. Maybe that was a routine. So the initiatives then are updating the annual plan template, like we're doing right now, develop monthly and quarterly board reporting routines. This is where develop a consultation plan for the new strategic plan falls. Establish a working group to develop a business continuity plan. That was in there. I think Julie and you talked about this, maybe rewording this to say establish a working group, create a working group to establish the approach and resources.
So is this something that the CEO is doing
These are something,
or is the board doing?
these are the board doing, because it's about
Okay.
planning and reporting.
And I would say a business continuity plan is the CEO, not. the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, so maybe there's two different
Yeah,
things here.
but we,
Because a business continuity plan is how do we keep the library running if there's an emergency? And I don't think that's operational as far as I'm concerned. It's not the board's responsibility.
yeah, okay, good
okay.
point. But we were talking about a working group because we still don't really understand, the finances.
That's
right?
different than the business.
Yeah,
continuity.
Yeah,
totally
yeah,
different.
yeah, so this is an additional action that working, so establish a working group.
Would that just move it up under the monthly and quarterly
sorry.
board reporting routines? Like a working group to establish
Sorry, before we lose the
Sorry.
business continuity, I still, if we don't have a business continuity plan, we need a business continuity plan. So I think it should still be in there.
yes,
But
yes.
all it should say is
It's
Uh,
CEO.
develop a business continuity plan. Don't put anything about how,
Oh,
and have it be a
sorry.
CEO responsibility.
Okay,
Sorry, thank you, yeah.
If I could make a comment to just the wording of the key result 2. I think
Mhm.
it needs a little bit of an adjustment only because in the annual and multi-year agenda, that's part of the board bylaws. We just revised it in January. It has it's the annual plan for when, say, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 reports come to the board, when the budget comes to the board. So that's already, just
Okay,
based on the
okay.
language,
Okay,
we already have, a process in place for that.
Yeah, we do.
So it's just, I think it's just an adjustment of the language there, because that is in place, but I don't know if it's more so.
Do we want to just say have monthly reporting?
That's what I would want.
See, because we still are back to, how well are we doing? How do we know?
Well, I'm gonna leave the whole discussion of performance measures to the end of this,
Okay,
because but how do we know is a very key question. for
Yes.
this, Because I don't know how we know based on what we've got written down here, but
Yeah.
hold that thought.
yeah.
but,
yeah,
but that's,
something
that was, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that what we wanted this working group for?
So,
To
yes,
Develop
to,
performance measures?
to develop performance measures, but also, what we were talking about was the kind of the multi-year financial outlook. So they're, because we, I'm trying to remember the conversation. I think we have combined too many things.
I think so too, because I think performance measures for this plan is a totally different discussion.
Yeah,
Versus,
yeah.
the board wants to understand how the financial reporting and finances work. So that we know that when we get a quarterly report, what we're looking at, and do we feel comfortable that the report is saying what it should or whatever. But that's,
Yeah.
I think.
that's almost more board development.
Yeah,
too,
that's
isn't
more board
it?
development.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because the quarterly reporting on the budget, Jen can go, yeah, it's good, and we'll go, okay, because we don't understand what's happening, or we want to dive deeper in there. And
Right,
say, oh yeah, we agree, Jen, it's looking really good.
well, it does. You look at Q4 and it's like, we made a surplus, so like, oh, we're good. But are we good long-term?
Is the
Like, are we,
surplus good?
yeah, are we achieving what we need to achieve?
Yeah.
Um,
So you want to more have an educational session on financial strategies.
but it's beyond that. It's more than just teach us about it. It's about creating.
Well, that's why I put strategy.
the format, yeah. So that we're creating it. So what we didn't want to do was just say it's just up to us talking to, like having the town finance. Because we're just wondering, is there, do we know other people who have, who are familiar with municipal and library financial approaches?
yeah, like that guy at, the lawyer.
oh, Jason Raynard,
Yeah, and it comes down to, oh, can we just go do our own sign? We have the money, can we? We think so, so then it's all, should we spend that money on the sign? Is it more important than the bathrooms? Or do we have enough money to do both? Right?
So when you guys said business continuity, what did you think that meant? What was that in your mind?
I thought it meant cyber attack, like, what happens, it used to be pandemic. I think our next
So
major,
you were thinking of business continuity in the face of some emergency?
that's what I think of as
Yes,
business.
and that is what business continuity is, yeah.
Yeah.
I just meant, hearing Joanne talk more about sort of having a financial strategy where you're thinking of how do you keep business going all the time? And are you doing it strategically, which is sort of a different.
Which is different, yeah, sorry, the develop a business continuity plan was in the action plan from.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it should still be there,
So it
but that's a
is- it is-
CEO.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we were misunderstanding.
I think we just
where it came from.
merged.
Yeah, I think we
This
just
was near
merged.
the end of it.
We were tired.
You're
It was
right.
going and, yeah, so is this about developing financial, like a long-term financial strategy or developing, I'm gonna say financial?
What are you trying to get out of this?
At the end of the year, I think we would like to be comfortable that we understand, and maybe it's a 4-year outlook of where our funds are prioritized. And that comes back to the fact that we're talking about expansion. So it's not just about, do we have the monies in the right place and who's allowed to spend what money? It's about, okay, for example, we know our surplus is currently being held for the staffing, the wages that we need.
Yeah,
So, okay, so that money's not available. So, okay, how much are we gonna need? If we think, as we get an estimate for expansion, do we really have an understanding of where the money sits? And
Yeah.
how to set that out? So that's, I think that's where it's coming from, is part of it is I can look at this and say, okay, everything looks great and I trust that then the money's being managed, but I don't have a clear
Do we
understanding.
have the right amount of money in the right place? Is that what you're
Is
saying?
the money in the right place? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so do we have a consistent line of sight on the money, so we'll get the development charge estimates will come and we'll have an idea of what might be coming this year. When we won't know for the next year until they're coming in. I'm thinking about as we make decisions to spend money, I don't feel like we have an easy way of saying, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's been important, we can't
We're
touch
kind of
this
making that
fund
decision in isolation.
in isolation or sort of in a one-off.
And
That's,
the previous CEO had done the projections out that showed us
Yeah.
how we were going to need those reserves, but I think, it's been 2 years, Jen's in her second year, we talked this morning that you've got to look on it, and it does look a bit, I won't say worrisome, but I think this board needs to see and feel comfortable with.
So you want to see a 5-year strategic financial plan?
Well, and I think it's part of our resilience, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put a label
Yeah,
on it.
yeah,
so
yeah,
everybody
yeah,
understands.
trying to figure out what
Yeah.
to, so.
Because I would think that the town in their budgeting would have a 5-year horizon on estimates and planning and,
They
I know
will
we
for
did in the
them.
government.
They
we
will,
did.
they will for them, whatever the term is that they have.
But, and
to.
then well, I guess we sort of fall under them and we
But
don't. Yeah,
But what we do with the money that's
Yeah,
allocated.
yeah.
I know there's interest from the deputy treasurer to work with me on that sort of thing. Like we just really haven't had a time. Now that the town's budget just passed,
Yeah.
there's gonna be more time for me to actually sit down with this new finance department and go through everything. But the deputy treasurer has spoken to me about like, hey, I understand you're funding your budget the next 3 years using your surplus reserve. Like, we need to talk about
Yeah, okay.
a long-term solution. And he's willing to work with me on it, which is great. It's just a matter of finding the time now that the budget's passed to sit down and take a closer look at that sort of thing. And it would be the same with the treasurer too. I haven't actually got to sit down with the treasurer to go over all of these things. I won't go over all of the reasons why. There's just been a lot of shifting and changes that have happened in that department. And then, of course, the budget happened, but I'm very confident that I'll get the time to sit down with them within the next couple of months to go through that. And I think
I think it's all there. Joanne, and sort of is maybe revisiting what Sabrina had done, so we can be reassured that we have covered all the basics anyways, for the next 4 years or 5 years. 5 years is a long time.
I think we should probably say 4.
And, at least your operations part is looked after, and then there could be decisions around the different reserves.
So what if you worded this to say something like, so we all agree that second line isn't what you guys were hoping to get, to develop and implement monthly quarterly reporting routines, because we've already got that through.
Well, no, I think we also want that, but that may be a step within the initiative that we need to.
But so if you said something like, create a working group to develop a multi-year strategic financial plan.
There we go,
Yeah,
like that. Say it again. Create a working group.
Create a working group to develop a multi-year strategic financial plan.
Yes.
And then you don't have to say 5-year, 4-year, multi-year, and the group can decide what horizon they want to look at.
and then out of that would come monthly quarterly board reporting.
But no, we need to have regular reporting.
Yeah.
We do, and we have a policy on that, so maybe that would
Yeah.
be review the,
although it's not monthly, it's only quarterly.
Yeah.
So this comes, whether or not it is monthly, and I think this does come back to, do we want to see visits? Do we want to see
Yeah,
number of programs, whatever, and how often? And we just say, reporting routines.
So back to this working group, and who would be in this working group? Because you would need somebody in the working group to lead it that knows financial,
Yes.
how municipal and government, and that's not me.
I feel like it would be me as the treasurer of the board.
Okay, yeah, that would make sense.
and whoever wants to be involved here, like we were thinking,
Yeah.
we don't necessarily we don't have time to do this on our regular board meetings, and we don't have committees, and we've not felt the need for committees. But in a way, this is almost like would be almost like a finance committee. Maybe
Do we need a working group, or is it I work with the deputy treasurer and then we both come to the board?
Did you want a board member to be part of those discussions, or is that getting into the leading versus operational boundaries?
Well, I think because the board responsibility, like ultimately,
finance.
everything about finance is
Yeah.
our responsibility.
that's true.
So I believe that, and that's why I think we
Yeah.
were like, is it Jen to do as treasurer, or is it the role that somebody on the board has to play? Or, and so I would say the CEO board, and we decide is it one member too.
But is it an ongoing function or is it just to set up a structure?
It's a planning function, it would not be an on.
I know, so then you're not,
That's why you would establish.
it's
the
really
working
an
group.
ad hoc committee then.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I guess ad hoc committee is, because a working group implies it's a continual thing. Yeah, okay.
And when you kept talking about the treasurer and then adding a board member and ongoing, I'm thinking, this is a little
Yeah.
different picture.
And we can't
That's a good point.
appoint a town
No.
person, but if there's any sort of internal communication between library board and town staff, I can kind of be the staff person that brings them into the conversation.
and maybe when we get to talking about the training for us, we might be more comfortable. I know I would be, like if that, what was his name again?
Like
Michael Switzer.
the deputy treasurer.
Yeah.
No, sorry, the fellow from Innisfil.
Oh, Jason Rayner.
Yeah, if we had somebody, because we, we're like, can we do this? We think so, but we've never done it before, like do what, how, like, I still look at this finance report and I'm like, oh, like. Yeah,
The one thing
Those
to keep
terrible
in mind
items.
too, in that presentation is, yes, you have the legislation. And he had to speak very broadly because then, other organized, like we've got the MOU, we have other policies
Yeah.
and things in place too that we would have to reference. But yeah, the finance, there's a lot of things in the Public Libraries Act that are very, right?
yeah.
And so develop and implement, we already have reporting, so it's only to me to understand what you're driving at, if you wanted to change that reporting structure.
So I would say review reporting policy.
But we aren't receiving,
We're receiving quarterly.
well, we're receiving financials, but we're not receiving
We've got statistics
the
too.
statistics. We haven't received those.
Oh, okay, so this is more than just,
Yeah, it's more than just a finance, isn't that, yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
so
okay.
this is why I realized this should be two. So
yeah,
key result number two, like the first would be formalize annual plan and reporting routines, including metrics, period. That is develop.
so it's not really routine, it's content. What type of reports do you want? That you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yes, we
yeah.
used to get monthly and we said we don't
Yeah.
want monthly
We feel like
anymore.
it's too much.
We only want quarterly, so I think clarity on this
Yep.
point is
Yeah.
needed.
That would be helpful for me too with the CEO reports.
Yeah,
But the other thing to consider is there's the year in review every year. And it may not capture the statistics that you want. But I strategically with staff pick sort of the stats worth highlighting. And I think typically we will include like the number of visits because it's always impressive. But it's not a comparison.
yeah. So I think, so this is why we put reporting routines, because part of that is what do we want to see at every board meeting? What should we see quarterly? right? Like they're different things.
So
So it's,
review is a more appropriate word, because what we're looking for is a change to what we're getting now.
So did we want to actually?
yeah,
So if I go back to how are we going to show success on our increased use, blah, 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 that we have in the, so this is what we want this reporting to be linked to.
Yes.
So I would
Yeah.
change this to say, develop a reporting policy against achievement of the action or the strategic plan, or whatever we're calling this plan, the 2025 action plan.
Yeah, so.
Yep.
That could get into number of programs.
Yeah.
Um,
Increase usage, like
Yeah.
it would touch on all that,
I like that.
because we
Yeah.
don't have any performance measures in this.
right,
Right.
not yet,
Different.
yeah.
What
Yeah.
was the suggested wording, develop?
A report, no, a report policy against achievement of the annual action plan.
I would say reporting mechanism
Reporting, sorry, mechanism.
rather than policy, because it's specific to the plan.
Yeah.
So do we
Want
want
to say that
to,
again?
Yes, please.
Develop a reporting mechanism against achievement of the annual action plan.
yeah, that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay, I like that.
I don't know about the, we can play around with that, because mechanism, again, when I think of it, might not be the right word, but that's the thoughts there.
Method? Or,
Approach.
So really it's metric, it's
Approach.
metric approach. It's
Approach is much better.
approach,
Yeah.
approach. Okay. Okay.
We will take a break maybe when we're done this, so.
We're so close.
Okay. So I have one comment on,
So we're going on to the next objective.
so this is, sorry, create an ad hoc committee to determine a multi-year financial plan.
I would say multi-year strategic plan.
It was a multi-year financial strategic plan.
Okay, and that will then, because when the budget kind of is a multi-year. Yeah, about the strategic. plan.
So when I put the word there strategic, because it would touch on the concern that you have that you're living off of the surplus.
Right.
And what are you gonna do in 3 years? So to me, that's more of a strategic decision, a strategic direction than the keeping the budget as it's going.
Thank you.
Ad hoc has gone into typo in it.
Thank you.
That comment where you would just say, yeah, working group becomes ad hoc committee. Sorry.
well, you don't need the comment.
No, we don't need a comment. We just.
Oh, I realized. My question, we even hit save. Oh, there you go.
Okay. So then, yeah, and so charitable status sort of falls under here unless we want another result about, the key result of, establishing incremental sources of funding. That would be, so all funding activity goes underneath that, or we just leave it here?
Should leave it.
I mean, really, it's
Okay.
kind of does it really belong in a work plan, apply for a minimum of one new funding source? Like, it's an example of how we're going to develop this multi-year financial strategic plan. Oh, wait, it's just logistics, I mean, we might, it's just wording, I mean, I don't have a problem.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if we want, I mean, if we feel that we should have another key result around, additional sources of funds. Because again, a plan identifies where the work has to go. So there's lots of work to be done. Getting the grants, et cetera, it is it's an important role, and the charitable status is work as well. So I feel that they should be on there as initiatives, whether or not it's a completely separate.
Well, you're
result area.
trying to look at resilience, and that includes financial.
Yeah.
So if you, as was earlier said, if you've got all your eggs into your account basket, you're really dependent on them. But finding alternative sources can be tricky. And also, if you look like you're rarely successful, then the town could be cutting back on what they're funding you too. So
Sure, yeah.
it's a bit, we have to be careful.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So should we just leave them for now under
Yeah.
this rather than adding another separate result?
If we don't put it as a result and we do get someone, we can put that as a win at the end.
Yeah.
Sure.
Was there any suggested updates to this line yet? Or
That was really developed, so the result is to develop a multi-year, we can say, financial strategy. So,
The reporting routines are down below now, right?
so this is just the statement of the result, so,
I thought you said there was gonna be two.
oh, if we're gonna change them into two, then the financial outlook becomes this
A
key
separate.
result number 3. I think for the sake of paper, it's okay to include them. Just,
In there. Okay.
formalize annual plan and reporting.
Maybe you're looking at broader than financial, and you're looking at performance, and that includes your reporting and your finances and other performance metrics.
I like that.
Yeah, two. Yeah.
Say it again.
You gotta write it down before you say it.
Say-
I don't know, just to, try to formalize or create or develop or install performance,
Oh, right, yeah.
plans, measurement plan.
Performance.
Create a multi-year performance plan?
What if you said, what if you
I
said?
like formalized performance measurement plans.
We have to develop the performance measures because we.
Yeah.
So to develop and measure against performance measures on that.
Exactly, that's like what you're trying to do.
the key result, though, it's always sort of, it's like it's happened, right?
So performance measures developed and reported against
Yes,
on a regular basis. And that includes all your finance, that includes all your, who's using what,
Utilization.
yeah.
and I can't think of another, that's, yeah,
Okay, got it, like that.
start.
So the develop consultation plan for new strategic plan by Q4, why did you put that in here instead of the,
Cause we initially had it under,
We had it under the first one.
the keep pace with growth and community needs?
Then we can put it back there.
yeah,
I just wondered why you threw it into here,
I think
because to me,
because
this
we
is
were
more
feeling-
operational.
I think because it's, the strategic plan is kind of everything, not just space. That's why we put it here, but let's move it back.
Yeah.
We'll move it back. You're absolutely right. Okay.
not a hill, but.
It's yeah.
So what are the
Move it back into.
But
That would be
it's
a
like into the
I still do
key
it.
result a little bit.
The first one.
Sorry,
Like the
I
structure.
mean, it is.
Guys,
It is,
sorry.
Yeah.
one conversation, what do you,
Here's all one.
And then what was the second key result in the English? Yeah, it doesn't really fit into either one of those.
Into,
it doesn't fit where?
oh, no, that's why I think because it's a strategic plan, like we know that this year we have to start, really, when we were talking about strategic planning, we were just saying we have to think about where and how we're gonna start our consultations for next year,
Yeah.
right? It is part of that, long-term.
Performance.
It is.
a performance measure in a
Performance
way.
measures that shows it's valuable community.
And it's resilient, right? Like, we wanna be, like, meeting our community needs. We won't be here if we're not.
Put that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So-
is an organization or operational plan, because you're creating these strategies and goals each 4 years or thereabouts. So it's just now starting steps of creating the next one.
I think similar to, so again, we either create another key result or we just agree that it's gonna fall loosely under here.
I mean, this is like 90% done. We
Yeah.
don't have our performance measures yet, but like, so I think we're getting better. Like, we could still tweak it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
the strategic plan, for the new strategic plan, it's kind of an anomaly that doesn't really.
You don't think it's kind of organizational resilience in a way, like?
Oh, it's definitely part of organizational resilience because,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely under our mandate is that we have to do,
Oh,
we have
no,
to develop a strategic plan.
Yeah.
Either, that's what I was saying, either we need a key result that talks about strategic planning.
Or do we remove it because it's already in a policy? We have to do it anyway.
That's true.
Oh, no, I would like to keep it in because it's gonna be a lot of
It'll be
work and we
big.
should get recognition for it.
Yeah.
Could you just create a key result 3 for this one? And just have that one thing in there?
I feel like it is part of,
You know
or
what?
I see another key result.
Yeah, just keep it.
Keep it where it is?
Yeah.
Okay,
And
Right.
the rationale, those are things we'll have to consider when we're developing a consultation plan, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, your resources will play a big role in there.
okay, I think we're kind of stalled out here.
No, I mean, this is
I think
great.
we
Yeah.
got, I mean,
Yeah.
I think this has been really great.
And thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was really good.
It's.
So what are our next steps?
Do you want me to
Are-
update my picture thing?
Well,
We can have it as an attachment for sure. if you
Yeah.
want.
That's the way I think.
But if that helps you, yes, that's.
You wanna have an attachment,
Yeah.
you know, a picture? I don't think you need to retype all the, yeah,
No, that's why when I did it, the most current one, I put like the K6, like, but now this is all changed.
Yeah, the numbering.
So we should have a numbering column for the key initiatives, like.
Oh, I see.
once, yeah, we took that out because we were getting too confused, but, once they're finalized, I think we could number them.
Yeah.
Does the board feel another committee of the whole is needed, or that this can be part of the next agenda and be approved in April?
I feel like we're there.
I think Rome's there.
Yeah,
So I would say that when we see the final version, which will be the one that comes out of this discussion, if anybody has any major changes, then maybe we just do it through email. But I don't think
Upload it
it's gonna
right
be any
away.
major, I think that,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, but I think it's good, I think it's really good, I think,
I do
what did you
too.
say, Julie, I think it's like 90% there?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I
I do
do,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Joanne, do you have a Word version of this you can send me?
I have it in PowerPoint, but I'll send, yeah.
Okay.
I think in working.
So who's doing
So-
what?
So
Are you-
I will send, yeah, so I'll send you, or I can, why don't I update what I have and send it to you, and then you can check against your notes. and then-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that's great.
So why don't we all, as board members, make a commitment to look at it, be comfortable with it, and then when it comes to the next agenda, it's pretty much just that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
It's not another discussion like this,
okay.
because we could do these discussions till
It's
December.
gonna
Yeah.
keep going forever.
Yeah.
yeah.
We'd be on to the 20.
We have to get on to the, okay, now that we've said we're gonna do this, we have
Yeah,
to
now
do
we
it.
actually have to do it instead of talking about it. Yeah, okay.
Just while we're on this too, the topic of consultation for the strat plan, I thought it would make sense for the April meeting to actually, well, it'd be at the board's discretion, appoint a committee.
Oh,
Because I think that was the process, the last strategic plan, and the manager of community engagement played a really big role in the consultation part. Or it's just a discussion item, I guess, but I think that
yeah.
at the end of the next
Yeah.
meeting, I'd like to have an idea of where we're going with the consultation part.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so, we've finished action planning. It is 2:25. Want to take a quick break and then we'll move into community hubs, accessibility. We still have a fair bit to discuss in organizational.
So are you looking to start the consultation plan before the end of the year?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of opportunities between even now and say if we schedule like formal, like a workshop of sorts where, you know, if we've got any sort of engagement happening or outreach happening over the summer, we can just wherever staff are, have them talk to people
Yeah,
and start gathering information that way.
yeah,
Yeah,
rather
that's a
than have
really
it
good
all
point.
separate.
Yeah, there's so
Yeah.
many more things in the summer.
And
Yeah.
summer is a good time to do it, because you're not freezing your butts and you're standing outside. And then we've got the Thornberry Market that a lot of people go to,
Yeah.
and I know that Mary was there
Yeah.
last time, so.
Mhm.
I did talk with, I had a meeting with the director of strategic initiatives and to see where there's sort of alignment with the town's consultation process, but they've already put out an RFP for a consultant. They're going through a whole different process, and it just, if at any point there's overlap, sure, but waiting and trying to plan with them just didn't make
No.
the most sense this
No.
time around. But they're moving forward with a 2-year plan so that they're back on a schedule that makes more sense with council. Like we're right now, it makes absolutely no sense. So there will be major changes to their strategic plan, which might be a bit difficult for us to make sure that we're aligning with theirs. But theirs is only a 2-year plan, so at some point we might be able to modify it a little bit. Or at some point we might be on the same schedule, but right now we're not really.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. And,
So come back at 2:30
yeah, well,
or
2:35
2:35? Okay.
or,
I don't know which clock I'm looking at.
Jan, do you wanna?
Yes, I'm just gonna scroll down to where I need to go. There we go. Okay. So this is essentially a follow-up report to the report that came to the board last fall, summarizing the results of the Ellie Shore accessibility audit that was done by Unity Studios. So this audit was conducted by myself, the museum curator, and we did consult the manager of facilities and fleet, mostly to ensure that our interpretation of sort of the AOD and the building code was correct, but also there is a chart later in the report that summarizes what the board could achieve realistically in the next 2 years from both of the audits. And that means, yes, it's board money, but also a realistic interpretation of the town's capital budget too. So not just, oh, we know the town's responsible for this, but it's what can we actually do in the next 2 years. So the report, I mentioned this earlier, we definitely have to consider the fact that it is a historical building. The one thing I do want to make clear about both facilities is both facilities are operating in compliance with the AODA. Even our bathrooms here, they are AODA compliant. However, with the framework that was used by Unity Studios for Ellie Shore, the framework, that's the same framework I used for the museum's audit, and it goes above and beyond the AODA. So we're looking at the AODA as the minimum standard. Do we meet the minimum standard? Yes, we do. But do we want to aim higher? Yes, we do.
So the washrooms at the depot are meeting the,
Yes, and the reason they meet the standards are, the standards for a historical building are different from like a new build or like a standard public facility. Are there a lot of things that could be modified and changed at the depot? Yes, and a lot of what Alessia and I had actually pulled out as high priority items are things that are also what we consider health and safety concerns for the staff. So I'll get to that a little bit later in the report. But what really came out of this was and this was no surprise to the manager of fleet and facilities as well, is the parking lot is a huge issue at the depot from an accessibility standpoint. Just in terms of the fact that it is not a paved lot. So you don't have, so it's not a paved lot. It's also quite a small lot. And because of where the museum is located, a lot of the people that actually use the parking lot are not using the museum. It's tourists.
They're going to the beach.
And then you add those electric car charging
charging
stations, which overcomplicates just how horrible the parking situation is at the depot. But when it, you know, do we have signage designating staff only parking spaces? Sure. Do we have 2 designated accessible parking spaces? Which again, yes, we do, and it meets the AODA, but are the parking spaces clearly identified in terms of lines? No. Is the gravel smooth and easy to navigate when you're using a mobility device? Absolutely not. We know that that's a huge issue, but it's also a massive capital project that is not identified as a priority in the town's budget. And so later on in the report, when we sort of are combining what can we actually do now, that's not identified, even though, yes, we know it's a huge issue at the depot. But another thing that sort of came out of this conversation with the manager of fleet facilities is the parking lot at Ellie Shore also needs some work. So it's a problem at both facilities. And so that's sort of covered in this report. There's a lot of other issues with the parking lot, even when you're a staff member, just pending the season and how the lot is. Your staff parking spaces are often flooded. So like you're getting out of your car and you're stepping into massive puddles of water. There's potholes. There's a lot of really big issues with the parking lot there. And then there are also issues in terms of like the pathways coming into the building, the main book drop. If you see this photo here, there actually isn't a clearly identified pathway leading to the book drop. So it's just sort of like placed to the side on the grass. We also got this book drop book return from the Peterborough Public Library. And so we have signage that falls off of it. And sometimes people will say, oh my gosh, I didn't even want to drop my books off because I'm not dropping them off at the Peterborough Public Library. And so, you know, can we come up with a more permanent solution for signage? Yes.
Oh my God, I did not realize it says Peterborough Public Library.
Yes. And that would be, you know, say 3 months ago, it probably didn't look that obvious, but when you get into the winter, that's when the stuff starts peeling off and it's a bit of a nightmare. But that doesn't solve accessibility related issues in terms of actually accessing it. But then if you're sitting in, say you're sitting in a wheelchair, you're using a wheelchair, like to actually reach up above your head to put books, it's problematic. So that was identified. And even, you know, some of the renovations that were done, the building is better than it was, but it's not perfect. You know, we have issues with the doors. That are identified in this report. But should you be using a mobility device? Can you get in the main entrance? Are there automatic door openers? Yes. Can you navigate safely through the entire building in a wheelchair or using any mobility device? No, you can't.
Sorry, even with the path the way it is, is there a possibility of someone like, so they're saying that path, if you have a mobility device, that path is acceptable from AODA standards?
So if you were parking in the parking lot,
Yes,
you could still go through the gravel with the wheelchair and make it up the path.
you could. Can you do it comfortably? No, but you can.
Okay.
Is the width of that as the main entrance? Is the width of that door AODA compliant? Yes. And the thing with the depot too is, in the AODA, if you're doing a renovation, that's when you have to implement something like a door like this. Where if you didn't renovate the building at all and it was the original historical building, it doesn't matter if you don't have an automatic door opener. But it's when you start doing renovations, that's when there's more sort of regulations, I guess.
Right. And then as it relates to the book drop, because that's part of the library, that's accessible? To me, having to
No,
go
but you
from the
have
path onto the grass means it's not accessible. I don't
Yes.
know.
But from like a legislative, my understanding is from like the legal perspective is there an accessible option for the public to return their books to the library? There is. That's just not
That's not
the
it.
accessible
No.
option.
You mean it's coming here?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or going into the building and physically returning your book. Like there's nowhere in the AODA that says every single outdoor book return has,
okay.
yes. And so that's why looking at the AODA as a minimum standard is important. But then, you know, say you're going to council and asking for, like a lot of the time it's, well, we don't have the budget for that. And it's because they're looking at the legislation as, well, we're meeting the legislative requirements. So why, we don't have to do that. So why would we? And so with this building too, it's the same with the renovations. So even though the main entrance is now accessible after the renovation, the archive room is not accessible. You know, there's parts of the building that aren't accessible, or there's a part in this report too, where I mentioned the staff entrance, which isn't pictured. It's a smaller entryway. It does not have an automatic door opener. When you go in, you're in a very narrow, corridor. And so we do have, a library staff member that has a physical disability. And so if they were working at the depot, we would have to say, well, you have to use the other door to get into the building, where when you look at the Ellie Shores audit and they're using the Rick Hansen standard, one of the points in that report was if you don't expect that of all of your staff, then it's not accessible. So like I wouldn't tell any other staff member they have to go use the public's entrance. It's the bottom line would be
That's
the staff entrance needs to be
Yeah.
accessible.
Mhm.
But the AODA would say, well, you're compliant. You don't need
Because you
to
have an
make,
option.
yes, because you have an option.
I mean, I think the one of the things we talked about wanting to do the space utilization here is so we have all of the potential improvements in front of us before we decide which ones we're going to do and when. So I don't know, like, is doing the depot, like, is that sort of a, I don't want to say it's,
It's a priority.
yeah, the priority moving forward, or is it our bathrooms here? Like,
Yeah.
are they both? Like, how are we going to tackle this?
Mhm.
Well, what I've done, and I mean, I can go back and go through more of the details, but
I think
With-
it's the last chart we should. probably
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
at. Yeah.
so this chart here, what I did was I had a conversation with the manager of fleet and facilities and said, okay, what can we do with your capital budget?
Yeah, there,
And yes,
Yeah.
like what is realistic? And his advice to me was identify like all of the, other than the parking lots, we know that that's unrealistic. I'm not gonna even revisit that right now. But what can we identify from both facilities that can be done within a specific pocket of money? And we can put out, one RFP for a contractor that can just get them all done with the money that we already know we have. And the items that I had selected in
the
this,
town's money.
yes. Well, and ours, but anything I put in this chart is something is funding that is already included in the town's capital budget, or funding that is doable within our operating budget. So anything that is the MPL, where do I have here?
Like the vision strip,
Well, that would actually be the town.
Mhm.
but you said the funding source is BMPL.
Oh, yeah, vision, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so something like that, that could easily be covered within our office supplies budget. If it's just a matter of getting vinyl, whether it's a vinyl cut. I could go to the Great Highlands Public Library and use their maker space and get vinyl cut yellow dots and put them, you know,
What,
like
you
that
could
is not
3D print them?
expensive. Pardon?
You would 3D print them?
Just a vinyl printer.
Oh, okay.
You could do that.
Okay.
So like anything that I've identified, except for, I think the accessible, oh no, I did put that as town. What else is the MPL?
The reception desk.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the reception desk is already in our draft budget. So unless the board removes it today when we get to the budget, that's already in there. An accessible reception desk for the depot is not in our current budget, but it could be added into the 2026 capital budget.
But here's where we get the overlap between our space utilization here. So yes, that's good that we have some money in there for it, but my sense was we probably should do the utilization study first, right? Or no? Is it something that no matter what we do with the corner here, like, should we just try to move ahead with that, knowing that?
The reason I put the desk at the CHD in here was I've also been working more at CHD, and I did recently internally a staff survey on ergonomics of workstations. It is a very uncomfortable setup.
No, I'm okay with that.
Julie, I would put sort of like the ergonomics is a good example. That's an occupational health and safety
Yeah.
issue. The utilization of space is a different issue. So I would say that, so you're thinking maybe if we do the utilization of space study, they might say that's not a good place to have the reception desk.
Maybe, but it's all,
Here.
yeah,
I think if you have a sit stand or whatever the recommendation is for you would just move that over to where it needs to go.
well, we also started talking about if we get a new building, do we wanna make? But I'm sort of leaning towards, I think we wanna make this building as good as we can within our resources now. But we started talking like, if we renovate it all, does that mean internally, does that mean we reduce our chances to get?
I
don't think that doing the
Something's coming
ergonomic
up.
needs isn't a renovation.
No,
I think that's just
yeah.
the fundamental basic.
I
Okay,
feel like maybe the way to look at this is almost in stages.
Mhm.
And so, because what we talked about before, and the reason we were here with this is there are some accessibility issues that absolutely need to be addressed. And if it's within our budget, in our capability, we should do it. And we've been talking about the desk here for 3 years, since I started, it's been on the list. So
Yeah.
that, to me, I think it's what are the things on the list that are, really fundamental to improving accessibility and meeting at the bare minimum. We'd like to go above and beyond, but the bare minimum, what we can do. I think so maybe it's like, those are those items that regardless, and then maybe the second filter is regardless of what we use, we may reorganize the space. We'll still need these. So a desk, we're still gonna need it.
Mhm.
It might go somewhere else, but we're still gonna need it. And then the utilization study is that broader,
okay, I'm fine
because
with
we have
that.
kids' needs, we have whatever. I think there's just, and maybe it's just my perspective is, I hate hearing that we're not meeting standards, accessibility standards. We're a library. And it drives me nuts to think that people can't use facilities and if there are fixes that we can do. So I think that list of fixes for those accessible things, we need to understand within the budget perspective though. So it is a decision if the reception desk at CHD, if it is a health and safety workplace issue as well from ergonomics, then maybe we do need to look at the budget and say, okay, maybe we should do that this year and not do something else.
And is there,
That's just a,
would we get the same firm to do both? So therefore, there would be some economies in the RFP and et cetera.
yeah, it,
I mean,
Yeah.
why wouldn't we, right? Like if we
Yeah.
have to go for,
If we're gonna replace both desks, we,
might get a better price too.
yeah.
so maybe just from a, like, why don't we go through the list here and maybe highlight those things that are like, okay, these are, they're accessible needs, we can fix them, and they're unlikely to change if we actually reorganize the space.
So like if you look at things around signage, I would say signage is something that could do regardless of what's happening with space. The change of light bulbs, that's a pretty almost a.
Yeah, well, I would say most of the things I selected are,
Well, in a way, I think Jen's already done that.
Yeah.
I think she has.
The only one I was wondering
The
about
dog
was the dog one and the cupboards.
like hinges.
Which ones were those ones? Designated dog relief area in Lisbon?
Yeah.
You're asking because you're saying, well, I mean, if it's listed
service
as
dog, sorry,
town,
yeah.
it's,
Yeah, I was, sorry, let's say the ones that are our responsibility.
yes. If it's
I'm
town,
thinking more
but
BMPL budget. Yeah, so I don't
And
know.
those two items too, the accessible outdoor seating and the designated service dog. Those I also think are part of a larger conversation with, community services. I talked to the manager of fleet facilities about this too, because I said, well, should we even include this? Or should the town not just be doing that town-wide? And, but then his response was, well, do we wait for the town to do it town-wide, or we start with your facility and then,
Be a
so,
leader.
yeah.
Look how everybody's
And that
happy
could
with
be included in one of the 10 things we put out for a contractor to just come and do, install this, do this, this and this. But ideally, like, we should be seeing these around town, not just at the library and the depot.
so we'll lead the way.
We could, yeah. I mean, when we're, if we're putting together this list and, say something comes in a lot more expensive than we thought, I don't know if the service dog relief area would get removed. It would just be a matter of what we can do with the resources we have this year.
Can I ask about the signage? Because we've got this comprehensive and consistent signage strategy for both sites, but you're also talking about the sign outside.
Yeah.
Would that not be part of that? And why did I miss something? But how come it's become sort of a priority you want to move forward? I'm not saying it's not a good priority, but maybe I missed something. Well, how did that, like, it's not in the budget.
No, it's not. And it really came out in Ellie Shore's audit came out separately. Like initially with the replacement of this sign, that came to my attention. The ACC brought it up because they said, hey, we talked about this a couple of years ago. It never went anywhere. Nobody knows there's a gallery in this building. What are you gonna do about it? And then so I kind of went back to see what we had done in the past, and we had a quote from, we had some artwork from the same designer that did our logo, and I went back, had them update the artwork. They came and did a quote for the sign, but then that opened a larger conversation with the depot about the fact that nobody knows that that's a museum and archive, because when you drive past it just, sure, there's like a town sign, and then there's like a little sign below it that says library and museum open, but you have no idea, this is in the audit too, you have no idea that it's a branch of the Blue Mountains Public Library, you have no real idea that it's a museum and an archive. And so Alessia said, well, hey, if you're updating your sign, well, why aren't you updating our sign? And that is a good point.
Yeah,
I think, so if I'm right though, just to what you're asking, this is about wayfinding from
Yeah.
an accessibility perspective. So within the
Yes.
library, do I know where the washroom is? Is it
Yes.
easy enough for
Right.
me to find, or even within the depot? That's a much different question.
right.
Although it's all called signage,
Yeah.
really this is about wayfinding from an accessibility
Yes,
perspective. So any actions here are, we're not creating large signs. It's
or
contrary.
even
if
our
I'm reading, it needs
posters,
to be done.
you know, like we've got on our stacks, posters about upcoming programs and events. Well, are they all meeting AODA?
Right.
Not
So it's an
really,
approach
like,
to
are there
signage.
any? Yeah,
So,
That's a
so
different thing.
are you asking for the board to give approval for you to move forward with the consolidated recommendations?
um,
For what you need the board, what we should be approving and what
Are
is,
you asking for us to give you approval to get a quote for these? Because we have no idea what the total cost of this.
yeah,
yeah, to be honest, I don't think that. Like anything that's identified for this year, I don't think will require any additional resources in the budget. But I think that when we're working on the 2026 budget, this should be referenced. In terms of, direction from the board, maybe direction for the CEO to move forward with the manager of fleet and facilities, to put together, trying to think of wording for a motion.
Implementation plan,
Maybe, or,
project schedule.
yeah, I like that wording.
Yeah.
Because it'll just be a matter of, I just need to work with Phil on getting,
But don't you need more than a schedule? Aren't you looking to implement all of this, like to get
So it-
accomplished within the year?
So that's what I would say the project schedule would be, is that.
Well, that's the first step, but what you really want is to complete the project.
Yeah.
Project schedule.
Yeah,
I think it should have an implementation plan at the end of whatever the motion is. An implementation, a schedule and an implementation plan? Or an implementation plan and schedule?
let me just think about this too, because I also, because it's not like the board can direct town staff,
But you would work with the town on the identified items that are town.
So is it, we're okay to move forward with implementing the items within the NPL purview and collaborate with town on those town initiatives? So
with an
because there's two
implementation
sections.
schedule.
With an implementation schedule.
We want
Both.
dates.
For
Okay,
both.
I'm just gonna write this
Yeah.
down for
I'm thinking
Franz.
there's two.
Or, okay, so this is the
Things
res,
that are covered in your own operation budget, can't you just go ahead and do it?
That's why that's
Yeah.
what I thought, was like separate that out. So we're saying,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
we
do it.
agree, go do it
Yeah,
within the budget.
Yes,
so go do it and report back on us on status. On stuff that's within the budget.
yeah, within our mandate, and then the town want to see you to work with the manager to.
It's just for our information, really. We've agreed to it already, so.
I like it because I think it shows that we're not waiting for some nirvana in the
I like
future.
it too.
Yeah.
We're moving forward within our resources. And we're also, because I know we had talked about, there are some implementation challenges maybe that the town is facing even with their capital projects. I don't
Yes.
know if,
Yeah, move forward with the NPL identified, what do we call it?
accessibility improvements.
Improvements as per the chart.
within the budget
Yeah,
that have been identified within the
Yeah.
budget, like the desk.
yeah, that are within the budget.
And work with the town on the
Yeah,
timing process.
Schedule.
yeah.
Schedule
Period. And to,
So we need to put this in a motion.
That's
Oh,
she's
yeah.
drafting. To work with the town facility and fleet manager.
Oh, actually, no, I'm gonna say the staff report too.
Oh, yeah.
Is he able to move forward?
Identified within,
Identified, I think. Outlined in staff report, post.
ADM 25.07. Accessibility report.
To move forward.
Yeah. That makes sense.
To
work with town staff. Or the, yeah, on,
On town identified
no, on,
accessibility improvements. Like, we're just talking about this one chart, right?
yeah, the
Yeah.
funding sources that are the town and
Oh, sorry.
responsibility.
Right.
Would the town coordinate these or would you coordinate these?
I feel like it would be collaborative, but they would take the lead because it's
Okay.
their budget.
So then I would say have, Jan to work with town to coordinate town identified responsibilities.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so with that resolution, can I have a mover? Chris, and a seconder, Joanne? All in favor? Carries, thank you, perfect.
And like this, I think
Yeah.
it's a
we're
lot of
taking
work.
action.
First, I would say it's a
Yeah.
lot of work. Thank you. It's a lot, but we are taking action. And
I really like the chart, actually, it really
Yes.
levels things up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I will say too, Alessia, the museum curator, was very helpful.
Yeah.
She knows that facility.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jen, do you want to give us an update on the MRFA?
Yes, I
Which
don't
is
have,
short.
it is a short update, although I was able to get, Ryan Gibbons on the phone before the meeting.
Okay.
He's been sick too.
Oh.
But so the staff, the final report, he has received it back from the town of Collingwood. Their CAO had some comments, so it's gonna come back to our project team before it goes to a joint council meeting. We don't have a date for the joint council meeting yet. And so I wanna say by the end of March, but I don't really think that's going to happen. So maybe we're aiming toward the end of April for that to come back to council.
What were the, did they have a lot of comments,
I haven't actually seen the comments yet, so I don't know, really what they were, but my understanding is, some of the comments that both myself and the library CEO in Collingwood had were actually included in, the revision, so I'm excited to.
So we have no sense of what the impact on us is, in the town.
And no timing as to when we'll know.
Like they listen to. I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah.
For our earlier conversation about 20 years. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
What about the update on the youth climate action group?
Yes, so, the media release has already gone out. We're accepting round 2 applications. We organized 2 writing workshops. One was on Tuesday evening here at the library. Unfortunately, I was sick, so I have to follow up with the project team to see how that went. There's another grant writing workshop tonight at the Meaford Public Library. And then what's really exciting is, we're hosting on when's the 18th? Tuesday? I should know this. Yes, on Tuesday, I'll be at the Meaford High School with the project team, and we're doing a civic engagement workshop with about 75 students, where we have a keynote speaker who the library helped pick and organize. Keynote speaker will sort of be the person that's going to do this very inspirational speech for youth to say, hey, listen, we know you can't vote, but you do have an important role in decision making. This is how you can have your voice heard. There'll be a bit of a climate action spin, and then part 2 of that workshop will be going over the Youth Climate Action Fund, and how they can put together a meaningful proposal and participate in the overall initiative. So this time around, we're actually getting into the high school, which I think is really important. But it has been even a little bit more collaborative between town and library too, in terms of organizing that. And Emma Barker, our manager of public service, was very instrumental in getting us into the high school this time around. So that was great. Yeah, so
So high schools have a library inside?
yes,
Okay.
I haven't actually seen it, so maybe while I'm there, I'll take a look to see what resources they have. Because I know when I worked in Great Highlands, the high school library there, definitely they got rid of most of their books, and it's more of like a learning lab versus having
Well,
access
I'm
to
wondering if they're
collections.
feeling some of the pressures of. what
The
books
funding
to
cuts.
read. No, well, not
Oh.
just funding cuts, but,
Intellectual.
threat
Yeah.
of whether to have a book there or not, because it's spreading across the country, so.
Yeah,
Will there be you talked about a spin on, climate, obviously, it makes sense, but what about on intellectual freedom? Can you somehow just incorporate?
maybe I can try and incorporate something into my
Well, just to
introduction
say you're
notes.
very
Interesting.
important people,
Yeah.
You have influence, the library, we're so proud to be a partner. I'm just talking off the top of my head, but we're progressive, we support blah, blah, and intellectual freedom.
There may be a way, because so the way we have it structured is we're going to have the mayor I'll probably introduce sort of the overall, what we're here and thank you and all that. Then the mayor will do a couple of speaking notes, then we'll do our keynote speaker, and then afterward and the keynote might have a bit of an interactive component. It was just really hard to plan because the school doesn't have Wi-Fi anymore, and none of the students are allowed to bring their personal devices. So like if we wanted to do any sort of interactive like Mentimeter, the keynote speaker is actually virtual. But they have the setup to do a really great hybrid event, but it's just to have an interactive component was really,
They got rid of their Wi-Fi?
yeah.
That seems sort of backwards. I mean, I understand no devices, but why would you?
I think it was all related to that. But we're doing an interactive component regardless at the end where, we'll have an exercise where they're actually developing their own idea for climate action. So we can actually visit each group and talk to them more one-on-one. So there may be a way I can kind of interact with them on a more personal level that way too. But we're only there we have 75 minutes.
For workshop, that's can go past.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I think I'm really excited about that format versus just having, it's important for us to host grant writing workshops, but to actually have teams to show up
Oh, yeah.
is one thing. So we're actually meeting them where they are, and it's like, okay, you have to give us this time.
Which is
So,
good. It's good.
Yeah.
Very good, yeah.
So we'll see where that goes.
That's great.
And we'll also be able to show them too what success actually looks like, in terms of the groups that we gave funding to the first round. Like we've got a group that did a video series, so we can play videos. And
Are
that
you
sort
gonna
of thing.
collect, sort of like contact info, names and contact info? Because you may identify like 5 real keeners who we may consult during our strategic plan, right?
Yeah, we have a sign-up sheet that they used at the workshop on Tuesday night that I wasn't able to attend. So I imagine we're using the same. I'll just have to see if I'm actually allowed to use the information we collect, but I imagine I could add something to it.
Anyway, I'm just
I know.
thinking, that's where you see your up and coming leaders, right? You have a meeting, something, and who shows up and
Yeah.
who participates, like you'll see there'll be some probably
Yeah,
not, but others who are probably very
Yeah, such a great program.
key. That's wonderful. Thank you, Jen. Okay, so we'll move on to organizational excellence and the protocol for receiving staff reports. So, this came out of, comments at our January meeting, I think, that, it became clear to us that, we distribute staff reports with the agenda online for the public. And then sometimes during the meetings, we make changes to the staff reports. So what is our process? So there really is no process. So we've looked at the bylaws, which say what we are required to, provide ahead of time. And I also thought, maybe we could have a really simple fix would be just to put at the top of every report that is attached, if we decide to continue to do that, that this is draft and may change during the meeting. And if you would like to see a final version, reach out. Like, no, because there is no like repository where these exist for the public to look at after, right? Like they get the draft, they get the reports, but then we don't ever circle back and
So
say
the only access they have is through the agenda
through the agenda and through the minutes.
and through the minutes.
So later on, it might say if it was a significant change.
Yeah, I think the understanding originally was when the agenda package is posted with the staff reports, that's the public record and that's the final, that's the report. And then if there are any amendments, it's captured in the minutes, but it's not actually like the report is reposted with amendments.
Right. So how do we want to handle that? Because it's not like we can make changes. So in essence, unless we identify it, there are versions floating around that are draft, that may be amended by the board when we receive them, right? Though they are your reports. I mean, so that's another way of looking at it. These are Jen's reports. So what are we changing when
So
we?
that gets back to it, is it coming to the board for information or is it coming to the board to approve?
Well, they are coming for information right now.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that don't, to my mind, about that is, yeah. Do we distinguish between the reports that are for information and the reports that are for approval?
Well, we do,
Is
because
the
there's
first
no.
question, yeah, because there's no, and then the other, but I just thought about this as an example. So the accessibility report, if it's provided to us for information, and let's say, so, okay, it's public record now. And let's say we're going through this and we suddenly realize that Jen has identified 3 things as our responsibility that are in fact town responsibility. We've gone for, and then that's noted in the minutes, and we go forward and we end up spending money, more money, needing to go to council for more money to do something. And people are like, well, why, in the meeting, it's not, that's not, you're not supposed to do that. This was, it's something for continuity of records, I guess.
Yeah.
That was just an example, just.
But you
So
can't
that if we
change
don't
someone
update-
else's report, to my way of thinking.
Yeah.
Like that's your report and that's it.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you very much, but then in the minutes, if we disagree with some action, it would come out in the minutes. And then it's public knowledge.
And then it's
If
covered.
it's a report for approval, then it's draft until it's approved. And it should be marked clearly as a draft.
So do we, as a board, though, we accept these reports as information and we
Yeah.
all
That's
say
the first
yay?
list. That's the
Well,
first.
that's
list.
right.
That first item,
think
that's what we do.
Received as
For
information.
information.
But we haven't even talked about the reports.
No, we shouldn't.
And so that is also a
That's
bit of
what's
an awkward
confusing.
section on our agendas. Because I said to Jen and she agreed that usually it's like you have a consent agenda. And then if somebody wants to pull it out to have a discussion about the content, then it becomes something that gets revised. But this is some like nebulous
Because if you look at this, so the 2025 draft action plan, oh, that's his draft though, so that's okay. But we accepted that as information, but we had a huge discussion on it and it's our plan, and would we not have that coming forward for approval to the board?
Well, I mean, technically, I don't know that we need formal approval, like, I don't know if we need a motion to approve it, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's
The action plan?
The final action plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I just look at today's agenda, reports to be received as information, the 2025 draft action plan. We did way more than information on that report. To me, a report for information is you go, yeah, that's good and move on. But this is our report. It's huge. We shouldn't be accepting that for
Well,
information.
no, but
When it comes back.
it comes, so there'll be a short description of what we did in the minutes, and then the revised one will come forward.
Okay, so why?
And we'll probably approve it next time.
So why do we have it there? I mean, this is just semantics,
Yeah.
but why do we have it there as we're accepting it for information?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It maybe doesn't belong under the foreign information, is a working document that the
Mhm.
board is working on. So it probably fits
No,
further
but
down.
Like the
We can't
accessibility.
discuss things unless we accept them. That's what I think Lori would say, is it not? Like,
Okay,
we
is that
need-
something standard? I didn't question.
Not to my knowledge.
I didn't question either.
That may be, this is the one thing I was a bit nervous to talk about this without Lori, because I feel like she has some sort of context that maybe
okay.
isn't.
Well, we could bring it back.
Yeah, why don't we bring it back? I mean, it's not,
Okay.
it would be nice to get clarity around it and sort of clean the agenda up a
Yeah.
little bit, but
I did find that a bit confusing myself, only that, like, I understood, well, I understood this as a consent agenda until someone told me it wasn't. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, I always found it confusing that you accept a report as information, but then you also
discuss.
discuss
and
it
change it.
and change it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like some items will just say discussion versus report. But should it be discussion versus report? I don't know. There's just some language that I did find confusing. I just continued to do it because I thought that was
Yeah.
how.
And how does the town do it? Like if this report comes from,
I feel like,
Staff.
like you were saying, is items that are, like, the information are literally, here's the information. You got it, you read it before the meeting. If anybody wants to pull something forward,
and have
they
it,
pull it forward. But further in the agenda are items that are for discussion, that are already on and need to be discussed.
Yeah,
So,
or
for
items that require a
example,
decision.
so today, we might just have the risk assessment report, the super conference reflection, and the service update. Those might be for information.
yeah,
And we read them beforehand, and unless anyone has a question or concern about them, we just, like, we don't need to go through them at the meeting. But if someone said, well, no, I had some questions about the risk assessment, so I'd like to pull that out, and that would become a discussion.
mhm.
I think that's different. And then the action plan and the accessibility report and the finance report wouldn't be on this list. They'd be under items,
Agenda.
the
They're
agenda
part of the
items.
agenda.
For decision, well,
Yeah,
for
for decision.
discussion and decision, like
Yeah,
accessibility, we made a decision.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, so I think, I feel like that's how council does it. I think the fundamental thing we need to know is, do we have to receive everything as information first? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, so we differentiate between things that are being presented to us and things we're discussing.
Yeah.
Like the Ontario Public Library Super Conference, post-conference reflection, that could be a discussion, but it's more of a, this was a really good conference. It's not like, we don't like strategically what you said in it, because,
Because we're not gonna wordsmith it.
yeah, we're not gonna wordsmith
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So
And
that's,
there's no decision to make around it.
But something like risk assessment, we might feel that that is really important, and maybe it should be that we have a motion
Yeah, specific.
to approve the risk
Yeah.
assessment report.
yeah,
But then that becomes an agenda item.
Well,
yeah,
it
it
is,
is an agenda item in F.
I know,
but,
Okay.
but it's,
but you don't need to put it down as receipt for, to me, receipt for information means no discussion, you've already read it. And this is just your update.
Yeah, and then you don't need 5 separate motions to receive as information.
No, and then you don't have it under another agenda.
okay.
Yes.
item.
so shall we,
it might be helpful to have Sean part of that conversation.
Yeah,
For the council.
Okay, so
Perspective.
Let's postpone
we
that.
need to, so what we need to do is confirm if we need to receive everything as information before we talk about it. And can we?
I don't think so, because I know lots of,
Yeah,
Not if it's later on that we have a report, probably. I don't know. Somehow I feel like there are some things where you have to receive it, like finance reports, like, at least that's the way it worked in hospitals. I remember there were separate motions to receive things. And then there would be a discussion.
unless it's in our bylaws,
I know, that says,
which I don't believe.
or does it say that we follow a certain? And
Well,
therefore, then we have to find out
But
what
we
that
always
means.
have the right to go and change our bylaws. So
Yeah.
if we don't
Yeah,
like how
yeah,
this is
yeah.
set up, we can change it. Like,
But to
this
change
is our agenda
bylaws-
for our meeting.
But there's a process for changing.
Yes.
bylaws.
Notice a
It's not
motion
that
to
detailed.
change the bylaws before you actually can change them.
But can we just see the bylaw that
Yes.
talks about approval and
It might
information?
actually be easier for me to.
I always thought this was a bit confusing, but I came in after the
I
fact. so-
feel like, I feel like
we
Sabrina
all-
made some comment about how this made things faster, but I don't see how. I don't see how it worked.
So our standard agenda. There should be an explanation for what these things mean.
So all it says is reports to be received as information.
Doesn't really.
And then-
I think that is a consent agenda.
I.
And
agree
it's
with you,
another
but-
word for consent agenda.
In which case, I think we
It's
just,
information
we
only.
ended up putting everything in there
Yeah.
unnecessarily.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, and we don't typically, we don't say, oh, Jen, in your report on the service update, we don't go back and say, oh, we need to change this sentence. We might ask you questions about it.
Yeah.
That might lead you to report it slightly differently the next time, but we don't. So maybe that's what it is. It's the receive as
Yeah.
information is only those items that
We're not making a decision.
we're not, there's no decision.
Yeah,
And no discussion.
I know
And no
discussion.
discussion.
Someone has a question.
Yeah,
So,
which then would move the agenda faster.
Which keeps things moving faster.
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, I think most of the other sort of procedural stuff in our bylaws is just regurgitating the Public Libraries Act. So other than the prescribed format of the agenda, it doesn't look like there's any definition of.
well, and it just says the package needs to be made public. So the package would include items for information.
Right, so we're back to the other
Yeah.
question we had.
Do we
Which
need to
is-
receive?
Well, no, the other question was, I think your question, what we talked about is what we present to the public before we've had a chance to discuss it. And so I think only information, items that are permit information, as opposed to
so let me flip it
maybe
around.
not.
Would we ever say no to something coming in for information? Like I could see if we didn't have the agenda and we didn't sort of consult on it before it came out and we had a major report and someone wasn't here and you'd say, no, we're not gonna receive this as information today because so-and-so's not here. But we never run, so will we ever say no to receiving something for information?
No.
If you, I think there are situations where, I'm not throwing it out there, but if I receive something for information, I feel like then I've been made aware of the whole situation, and I now am in a position that I have to make a decision on it. As
To
opposed
receive it as
to
information,
if I receive
not-
it, yeah. So I mean, I can't.
In a way, it's like, we can't say we didn't know what was happening at the library if we've received reports. Like, so we receive service updates.
That's the importance of having it on the
Yeah,
record.
yes,
So
yeah,
someone
yeah.
can
So
say,
we-
I never received that.
Well,
Well, you were
you
at this
did, and you
meeting
have
and
it.
this motion carried number 02.
So we may not have a problem because the things we change should have for discussion, for approval on them, right?
Yeah.
So, like, the the,
The action plan.
the action plan is clearly labeled draft.
Mhm.
So the next time it goes out, final, like, hopefully almost finalized for the next meeting, it will be an updated draft. So we're not worried that the original draft is still out there because it has draft, it has a date.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's superseded by the next document.
Timing wise though, this, to have this as an item on the April agenda, I think makes sense because at that point, if the board wants to revise the bylaws, then we could do a notice of motion in April and the bylaws can come with all the other policies
Yeah,
in May.
okay,
Good call.
Yeah.
Very good call.
okay,
Okay,
okay. All right,
so. Add.
okay. So do we need a motion to put that on? No, okay. All
I
right,
don't think so, unless you want, well, in the minutes, Franz, if you can just include that, what do we have it on here as, sorry?
F1.
F31 discussion protocol for receiving staff reports will be added to the April agenda for discussion.
okay. All right. And I see we are running out of time. We've got half an hour left. I'm very conscious of trying to end at 4. We've got the risk assessment report and the finance report.
So with the risk assessment report, if you just want to show me what changes you made on it.
Yep. So I removed, there was some confusion over whether the budget was actually approved. It was not actually approved. So I removed that line from section C, evaluation of overall risk. But I did add, I didn't add anything to evaluation of overall risk about
Health and
health
safety.
and safety, but I did move, so under health and safety, I added in a sentence about, so because the BNPL has less than 20 workers, we're not actually legally required to have a joint health and safety committee. However, I did add, we do have an internal committee in place just to sort of ensure that, well, explain
good.
that we do have an internal committee here and that we also have representation on the towns committee, but I also added in that there are JHSC certified library staff.
So could you add a sentence there that said, no outstanding issues or something? Would that be valid?
I thought about it. That reminds me what I wanted to point out to you. So in the checklist, it says something about legislated, where are we? All legislated requirements are maintained.
Okay, okay.
So I thought it kind of fell under
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I did, okay, yeah.
Can we do better? Obviously, but yeah, are we meeting all legislative requirements in terms of health and safety? Yes, we are, and ESA as well.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like your addition to there. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Great, so we have received this. We do not need to approve it, or do we? Would you like us to? Yeah, but this is
Is this
a good test of our new,
I did have a question. I
okay?
did have a question, sorry, just before we go
Mhm.
approving. Fire department, so as part of risk, regular, fire department reviews safety checks. It wasn't listed here, it's probably a requirement. What comes to mind though, in the accessibility, when they talk about a sticking door, and they talk about things that aren't, like signs aren't where they should be.
Yeah.
Has any of that been called out by the fire department?
Yes,
Okay,
specifically the emergency exit sign in the basement at the depot.
yeah,
So when we were doing the fall of last year, there are fire drills. That's when the fire department actually pointed it out. And so we have submitted a ticket with facilities.
okay.
We're waiting for them to replace the signs. And then now it's coming out in the accessibility stuff too, so hopefully that'll,
Okay, it's been covered. I just
yeah.
didn't know if it needed to be called out separately. That was all.
Um,
It's part of
the one thing I did put in here, is that this year, the town is supposed to be doing new building condition assessments for both Ellie Shore and the depot. So before I even approach updating the sort of gap analysis, I'll probably wait for those results because there have been I went through sort of the list of items with the town from the previous reports, and there's nothing new for me to
Yeah.
update.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get the ceiling fans, like they're already in the budget and they're slated to happen. It's just, will they happen this year? Fingers crossed.
So
There's
what is a new, so what auditor, what are they doing?
building condition assessment. So I think the standard is you have to do them every 3 to 5 years. And so the building condition assessments were last done in 2018, so they're supposed to be doing them this year.
We know when.
I just got this year.
And what do they look at? Very quick.
Everything like the HVAC, the roof, the
Okay,
windows.
okay.
That's
So the physical state of the building.
Yeah, the floors, yeah. The
So they-
parking lot, I would imagine is on there.
So they could also help with the accessibility.
Yeah.
There's an overlay.
Yeah, okay. It'd be interesting to see what they come back with. Has there been one done before? You said they get.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2018, and I did when we were doing the accessibility audit, I looked at that too to see
I
if
think I
there
might have
was,
that one, okay, yeah, yeah,
and it is on our website too.
yeah, I think I
So
pulled that
who's
one out.
doing it? Is it staff or is it someone else?
No, they do hire a consultant to do
okay.
it.
Okay, so we do not need to approve this because it is clear for information.
And we already approved it.
We've received it, yes.
There's nothing
We've read
to prove.
it.
There's no
We've
budget.
made changes
Yeah.
before. Yeah, and that's the other piece to this is Jen is still working out like the timing of things. So it's great that this came out. You identified something. So before it got posted, it had been reviewed.
Well, I identified it because last time when we went through it at the meeting, that's when we got into this whole discussion.
Yeah.
It's already published as staff report, we can't make changes. So
Yeah.
that's why I took a good look at it before.
Yes, so that's ideally even a better strategy is that we see them if they are going to be public. Okay. So, can we skip over knowing that the super conference is there for information?
Yeah.
Can we skip over that
I
and
spelled out some of those acronyms too.
I was just lost. I was just
I get it.
acronym city there.
okay, so finance report, 2025 budget and town budget. How do we want to approach these three items? Because we added our 2025 budget, we need approval for that,
Yeah.
Joanne.
I don't know
Otherwise-
for finance report though, like it is what it is. I think receiving it as information is
Okay,
fine. I can just do like a really high level if you'd like. In terms of I made a bit of a change, I tried to, because financial literacy was sort of one of those key things in the board's evaluation, I tried to give more information about grants. So I sort of just outlined what grants we actually received last year and how much money we received in grants, which was quite impressive, although the town levy kind of inflates that number, but it should be considered as a municipal grant.
I had a question about that. I just wasn't sure. To me, some of these are grants, some of these are, well, I guess I wasn't sure that was called a grant, but it is.
Yeah, well, even the session we went to at OLA where Jason Raynard, the lawyer, was going over sort of the legislation, he also kind of explained that it should be kind of interpreted by the board as a municipal grant. And if you look at the way that our budget is structured under revenues, it is like a municipal
Yeah, okay.
grant.
Great.
Then there's our provincial operating grant.
are any of these at risk?
Well, so not all of them are guaranteed. So the public library our municipal grant is guaranteed because of our finance agreement. The public library's operating grant, as long as you submit your annual survey every year, it's guaranteed. That number hasn't changed since like
The 90s.
early 90s.
It
Yeah.
must have been a lot of money back
So
then.
there's no inflation approach.
No. So every year, like, yeah, as long as and that would be a failure on my part. If we never got our provincial funding, it would be because the library CEO did not submit the annual survey. The Young Canada Works and Canada Summer Jobs, that's not guaranteed. We apply for that every year. I'm still waiting. I haven't heard from either funding source whether or not, I imagine we'll hear by the end of this month, whether or not we were successful. The Ontario Library Service ILO rebate, and the connectivity grant. I know for sure, I think it's the same for both. It depends on the ministry giving the OLS the funding. But the connectivity grant at library conference, I went to the annual general meeting. Well, one of the meetings where they did confirm, I think that the ministry confirmed the next 2 years for sure we're getting that funding. Not for the ILO rebate, but for a connectivity grant. So, for the most part, they're not all guaranteed, actually, just
And
at the
the
end.
charitable status, once we finally get that, will allow us to apply for more,
For more grants,
for
yeah,
more grants.
Yeah.
yeah.
So what was your top line? Sorry, can you go back? Oh, this is how much you got in grants, okay.
So in terms of, and again, these are the unaudited numbers. But in terms of all of our reserves, anything that is held by the board is in the sole discretion of the board. We don't have to go to council. We don't need any other approval. That is the board's money, that the board can access at any time.
And for clarification, that is the open reserve that is currently has been identified.
To my
that we're
knowledge,
using.
so that's different from the surplus reserve. Is that what you mean?
Yes, so I
Yes.
think that's where, because I haven't seen surplus reserves.
The surplus reserve
Sure.
I only included the surplus reserve when I brought the budget to the board.
That's this.
Yeah,
it
so
there?
it was in,
So it's not listed anywhere.
it's
on
not
here.
listed on here, no.
Okay.
But that open reserve is,
Okay.
it's not designated for anything to my knowledge. It's just, we've got it invested sitting in our account and it can be designated, it can be our emergency reserve.
You're not anticipating using it for stock down the road?
No,
Because
I thought
not
we
at this.
were.
That's what this surplus reserve is for.
Yes,
It's the surplus reserve,
Oh,
not
this
the
isn't
open
the
reserve.
surplus
Is
reserve?
it- That's why I needed to ask the question, because I thought it was, I was like, I keep
Oh,
getting.
yeah,
confused.
and so what's
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
is when I brought the draft budget to the board in October,
Mhm.
the number I brought for the surplus reserve, that had never appeared on a report before. I didn't even know up until that point that we had that money. I thought that that's what the open reserve was too, but it's not.
Mhm.
And how much is in the surplus reserve?
There was over $400,000. However, over the next 3 years, when we're dipping into
Yeah.
it, I'll have to look at the
Yeah.
budget again, but I feel like we're dipping into over $150,000 of it just to balance our budget over the next 3 years, and it's to cover our capital budget.
And then the open reserve, like, so where does the money go? Like, I noticed that we had a surplus last year unaudited, of, what? Oh, I don't know, actually.
I'll have to look at it again. Any
Mhm.
surplus, though, goes into the surplus reserve.
The one that's the 400,000 that we're
Yes.
dipping into?
And I mean, the board at any point could move money
Yeah,
into this reserve if
Into
you
the
wanted
open
to.
reserve.
And this is part of the conversation I want to have with the deputy treasurer. Why do we
Yes.
have so many reserves?
yeah.
This is why we want to have the
Yes.
long-term
Yeah.
planning conversation,
Yes.
because we keep coming back to this, and literally all of us have thought that this 300
Yes.
Yes.
was, anyway.
And that's
Anyway,
not-
good. We're all
Yeah.
solidifying and we're doing the right things to
Yes.
get clarity.
Yeah, okay.
Good,
But-
good. Okay.
So, and then we've got a land reserve fund, which a couple of years ago, there was another reserve that got amalgamated into this land
Mhm.
reserve
I
fund,
remember that conversation.
and that's for new builds.
And so the land reserve fund, because it's a reserve fund, is at the discretion of the board to spend.
Yes.
Okay.
And so what it says for new
Well-
builds, do we literally have to
Yeah,
on
the
new
board
builds?
created that reserve fund for that purpose.
But it's not like legislatively anywhere that it says we have to. Like-
No, it must be in a board motion though.
Okay, so we should, yeah, okay.
But so when it says when it's held by the board, that means it's in the board's bank account. And it's at the discretion, and so we don't have to ask anybody, although if I go back, there must be a motion. That says it's specifically for new builds.
Yeah.
The board can always
That's what I'm saying, it's
Pass a
like,
new
let's just
motion,
clarify, it's
yeah.
like, is that,
Yeah.
and. do
Yeah,
we-
because 18,000 for new build, what on earth, like. that's
We're
not-
building a playhouse.
Probably planning to start to put money into there.
Yeah.
In anticipation, like of an expansion, maybe we're gonna expand all of our book stacks or something, you know, and anyway. Okay.
Sorry, so it just, the date just struck me. So do we, at the next meeting, do we need to agree whether or not we're gonna let it roll over or?
yes,
Yeah, okay. Otherwise,
good.
so we'd have to agree before it matures, or we say, no, we want to move it
Which is
somewhere
gonna be at like 1.8% or something.
Yeah.
Down to.
But regardless,
Yeah, I think they.
there's a decision about.
And
what to do with
what
it.
is the 292 in?
The savings account.
No,
Yeah.
but is it in GICs?
No.
It's just sitting
Should
there?
we put
yes.
into something stronger? So
Okay,
you're
we do
actually
need a meeting
losing
with
money.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the 400,000 that we're dipping into is just cash too.
Yeah,
It's
in a
surplus
town
reserve.
lined account.
Wait,
Yeah.
the money we're
The
dipping into.
surplus
for
reserve
town?
is the town line account.
Yeah, but even though the town holds it holds
Okay.
the reserve, we don't need to ask, it's ours, it's in our funding agreement. And it's in our MOU that
But it's-
any surplus is at the board's discretion and it's ours.
But it's not in the bank account,
Correct,
not in our bank account. So what's in our bank account is the open reserve and the land reserve fund.
that's correct.
Okay.
And then we do have a checkings account. But basically what comes in there, we cut a check for our revenues every month. The board chair signs off and then it just goes into,
So why don't you have the open reserve in a GIC or some term deposit or something that gets you something maybe?
I feel badly that
Yeah,
I missed
I'm not
that.
sure.
I think this is a good discussion point.
And
Now
my
it's too late
understanding
for
too
5%.
is that the board having their own bank account and well, we have to legally, we have to have our own bank account, but also having control over our own bank account was new. Like, I think that happened,
With the MOU?
No.
no,
Yeah,
I can't, it happened while Sabrina was here. I just don't know.
I feel, yeah, I think
It was new.
there was some
though.
conversation around that anyway.
So I didn't touch that.
Okay.
And is that
before I fixed it.
audited? Like, is that part of the auditors? Like, they look at where
Yeah,
the money is?
and yes, we send the town all the information they need about
Okay.
that, yeah.
Okay,
They get,
So there's not a chance that we would go and find out that somebody siphoned money off or?
No.
Okay.
so as we sit here today, I'm gonna ask the question. Should we at the next meeting, again, just, is there a way to say, to come forward with, here, do we want access to it? So we're gonna put it into a high interest savings account. Or we're okay, let's put it into a GIC because we can get something more. Like, how do we, do we want to put this forward? Do we want to talk about it at the next meeting? Like, I'm just like,
I think.
if we said to
should.
Jen, hey, can you find out, give us 3 different options for recommendations for what to do with the money? And then we can make a decision because we know. And we might all say like, well, we should leave 50,000 of it.
But it
accessible
depends on
to
what
the
you're
rest,
gonna
yeah.
use it for.
This is, and maybe we're not
And
ready
whether
for
you're
that
gonna
yet.
use it in
Yeah.
the near term or long term.
I also wonder, I don't know for sure, I'd have to go back and read meeting minutes. But for the open reserve, I wonder if it was purposely put into savings so that if it was an emergency, it'd be easily accessible. You don't have to
Mhm.
wait
Yeah.
to get the money, and it would be the same with like the surplus reserve for the town. It's at least this is in our immediate control. That might be why. I don't actually know if that's true.
Well, we
So-
can lump those together
Yeah,
and talk about next.
So
week.
Jen, yeah, I do think we should have this discussion, but so I'm just looking at the unaudited Q4. So we were under our expenses by 5,000. We were over in revenue by 80,000. And we were under capital by 13,000. So where does that approximately 100,000?
And there's the 1,500 rollover for Stratland too.
Yeah, so where does that go into the 400,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that 400 was maybe 375 or 300 last year at this time. Because you said it's about 400,000, but we've saved, like, we had money, we saved money last year. We spent less.
The only thing is, for our capital budget for 2025, we had to dip into that reserve. So when I pull up the budget,
That's fine. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to get, and this 400,000 is a living and breathing thing. So if we overspend this year, that 400, and some of the stuff we pushing forward too, right? But
So can you use part of that 400,000 for some of the changes you want to make in terms of accessibility, et cetera?
yeah,
yes, but the only thing is, if we look at our budget, this amount, like this red amount here, and this is anticipated for next year, the year after.
Yeah.
Like, these amounts are what are going to have to come out of our surplus reserve to balance our budget.
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, but look at this. So we had a projection of being under, needing 40,000 in 2024, but yet we were under this budget. Like, we were under, so that 40 didn't come out.
Right, yes.
Okay, so these are older.
Yeah.
And maybe we could ask you to update them, because they were done by previous admin, right?
Well, this was recently looked at by the deputy
Oh,
treasurer
okay.
as well. And between now and April, I don't know if we'll have the final numbers yet, like in terms of.
Well, that's fine, but like, I'm just thinking, we're saying, oh my goodness, we're gonna be drawing down our reserves, but at least for 2024, we didn't. In fact, we added money to our reserves. So I think we're very conservative in these forecasts, right?
Yeah,
I'm confused. How did we add to?
Oh, no, I'm just,
Well,
where
because-
does it show
Because
that
we have a
added to that?
shortfall of 40.
No,
came
that
from-
was
Projected.
projected.
Mhm.
But this shows that we didn't.
Oh, you don't have the
Yeah.
actual on 2024.
Well,
But
and that's not.
because you
yeah.
also had a lot of stuff that went off on that leave and stuff, so
Oh,
then
it's
your
projected.
operations costs were not as.
yeah, there were a lot of unanticipated.
No, but when this was done, we anticipated we were going to need 40,000 from the reserves. And in actual fact, unless we pulled money out, it looks like not only did we not need that 40, we actually put back.
Right, because otherwise under
Yes.
operational revenue, where it says reserves rollover, so
Yeah,
if nothing came in from reserves, this would indicate that nothing came in from reserves,
Yes,
so.
Also,
So
all
I
I'm
see what you're
saying-
So that anticipated 40,
didn't happen.
Didn't
Don't,
happen.
maybe this 80 for this year will happen, or maybe,
It's based on what
We're
the
overly-
assumptions were in making those
Yeah.
projections, so.
So they need to change.
So
Yeah.
things change, staffing changes, and that's, most of the budget is staffing usually. So the question is, what do you know now that might change this year's forecast? And we might be coming okay with our budget.
Yeah, I mean, we actually got, an additional 40,000 in federal, or like an additional 33,000 in federal grants than we budgeted for. We, got 10,000 more in donations. We got 28,000 in own source.
Can I ask a silly question? The 80,000 then is surplus. Do we get that for next year or do we lose that?
It just goes into the surplus reserve
Okay.
and then it's at our discretion.
Okay, so we don't lose it. Okay.
So our projections for the future years stay the same, but our baseline changes because it's better than we expected.
Well,
Which
either
bumps
that,
up the
or
number
maybe we've
compared
been
to the
too,
other numbers.
maybe we've been too conservative. And we're assuming we're gonna need all this money. Like, I feel like I would like to see an updated, like, I don't know about you, but I love spreadsheets, so I do my own stuff. And I'm always having to revise it because something changed, something went up, the town taxes went up,
Yeah.
or no, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Doug Ford sent me $200.
That really made a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
Which I donated. But yeah. Okay, so I think this is the kind of thing where we say we really need to get, like, we have some learning, opportunities. here.
Learning, and I think, yeah, and
Yeah.
and the reality is Jen, God, you did such a good job. Because there's what we have to do to discuss with the town. There's the way that they have to see the numbers and they have to present the numbers. But then there's the reality of what is the information and how do we need to see it so that we can make the right decisions?
Yeah.
Because right now they're in my head, they're just in too many different places and it's
Yeah.
not clear what our total scenario is.
Yeah, can you
Anyway,
imagine if the person we had that many different bank accounts, how you would juggle everything?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, we have.
Okay,
we have an
so-
action plan.
How are we, so for the 2024 budget, I think we've received it.
We've
The
received it.
finance report, rather, the 20,
There's
so
nothing
we don't need to motion, on that. The 2025 budget in our last, like, we need to clean up the approval of the budget that you pointed out. We didn't actually approve it, but I'm not sure whether we should worry about that because you wanted to bring maybe the sign.
So I guess the question is, the 2025 budget, are you going to increase what we saw? Or is it a matter of moving line items around?
It would
Or do
have
you
to
know?
it would have to be increased.
Okay.
If the board wants to include, the sign. Or the other thing could be the board could approve the budget. And then once I receive a third quote, which I don't technically have to have 3 quotes in our finance policy, it does say if the board passes a motion to just move forward with one vendor, they can. I've received 2 quotes for the sign so far. The cheapest quote was just over $7,000. So like I have an
And it
idea
was by the firm that did,
our branding.
yeah.
But where was I going with this? I could, if the board were to approve the budget as is, I could always come back and ask to take that money out of the surplus reserve at a later date. It doesn't have to necessarily be included. It's really at your discretion. But I think it's important for the board to approve the budget. So we have that
So-
motion, and because the town's budget just got approved, at least it can all go out to the public as one document.
I agree.
Yeah, I would agree.
So we'll approve. We'll go back, not go backwards, but we'll acknowledge that. In what month was it we received?
October, the budget presented in October 17th.
So we would have a motion to
I think it would just be,
approve the 2025 budget.
Yeah.
Do you want to say with the amendment of the sign, or would,
I think
Or-
that's a separate I would
Be
prefer
more
separately, be
comfortable.
more comfortable because we don't know what the number is.
and we're also talking about all the other.
And we're talking about taking it from another source. So the discussion will be where do we want to take it from, which I think is a separate conversation. So we approved the budget as it is. As happens, additional expenses come up and the CEO comes to the board saying, we
Yeah.
need more money. And
Okay, so
Yes.
next month you'll bring the formal,
and
Yeah,
should I
draft of the
also
sign.
include,
The accessibility.
well, a new sign for CHD.
Oh, yeah.
And we had $80,000 left over.
I would say put it all in there and we'll
Yeah.
put it
Yeah.
in front of all of us and we'll kind of go.
But can you also
Yeah.
put in some of the accessibility things that you're moving forward with?
What I thought you already said, but you.
Yeah,
Are they already in the budget?
I think we can
Yeah.
cover, yeah.
Okay.
So she's
Okay.
gonna come forward with
So-
things that are not within.
Okay, so we'll have a motion
Yeah,
to approve the 2025 budget that was presented
October
In-
17th.
October 17th.
Although it was amended since October 17th with, the moving the board's budget from 2,000 to 2,500, and then Lori
Okay,
had
sorry.
also requested, that it
Yes.
be more obvious that the shortfall was being covered by the surplus reserve fund, which is these lines here. And then the deputy treasurer, I put this in an email to the board, but it was an hour before the meeting, so the board has all this info. But the deputy treasurer moved revenue to the top before it had, actually, this is about.
Oh, they just did a layout change.
The layout, yeah,
Okay.
just so that it aligns with the town
Yeah,
stuff now,
yeah,
because they
that's
made that
fine.
change.
Right.
Um,
Revenue.
so Franz, I'm just putting a draft motion in Teams right now, but I would say approve the 2025
Yeah.
draft budget as amended.
Yeah.
And maybe end that. To, I'm trying to think of something about the quotes for both of the signs.
I don't, right now, we're just.
No, we're
approving
gonna
the budget.
put-
Yeah,
we're
just
gonna do
approving
the
budget.
signs.
Yeah, the motion
Okay.
is that we're approving the budget as amended. I'll.
second. Okay.
I'll move
Okay.
and,
Joanne has moved it, Carol has seconded it, all in favor? Okay, it's
Yeah.
unanimous.
Yeah.
All right, excellent.
and then part of the meeting minutes is just. that you're
Okay, now we have 4 minutes left. To, the town budget.
There was nothing I noted, other than the fact that we haven't added the line about our MOU in it.
Oh, they didn't add that in yet?
Unless I missed it somewhere, which is possible.
I did
Okay,
send the treasurer suggested
The wording.
wording and she said she would include it, so I've
Okay.
probably, because they just approved the budget now,
Yeah,
it'll probably
yeah.
go in the final. The
Yeah,
final
there were
draft.
no, I mean, I didn't. You
didn't see any red-
I didn't
red-
see anything that was like, oh
Your
my god.
eyes and ears.
No, it's just, I haven't gone through it detail.
Oh, really? Like,
Yeah,
your
I read
detail
it.
is,
Anyway.
your cursory look is
like-
better than most of ours. Thank you.
Well, I didn't even look at it yet. so-
Yeah, I know.
Well, it was just Monday, right? It was just Monday that they.
See, she's got it, she knows all the, all right, that's great,
Oh,
thank you.
Okay.
We have no other business, roundtable, thank you for that, sharing that
Did
article.
anything about the tourism strategy?
Yeah, there were two.
Oh, right, sorry, I missed
What
that,
about key updates?
yeah. Tourism strategy,
Tourism strategy, so Alexia and I will be meeting with the consultants on March 19th. To go over how to capture the glam better in the strategy, so we've made some movement there. That's all I have to report on that.
oh, that's great, though, that you're,
Being connected.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that was very funny, because I had reached out to Tim, because I'm also working with the CAN group, so there were some.
The what group?
The Climate Action Now, just supporting them with some stuff. So I was curious about some of the direction, and I read the initial report and was like, it seems like there's a lot of things in here that need changing. Anyway, so I reached out to him, and part of it was also, I didn't make a statement about as role on the board, but just, there's nothing in here about library services, and libraries are part of tourism. So I sent a note to Jen saying, hey, I don't know if you've seen this. And she's like, oh my God, we're just about to
Yeah.
meet with him.
Good timing.
It was.
I'm not talking, but anyway, it's all good. It's all moving forward.
Great.
So,
And were there any comments on Jen's service update?
it's awesome.
Some, yeah.
So were we gonna I know it was part of the package, the results of the town survey, was that up for discussion today or?
You did. some-
Because the library came out as not needing anything more, like the library,
Well,
that
they're
survey
very
did-
satisfied.
Did not help our cause for saying we need an
Oh,
expansion.
I would beg to say there's another way to look at it.
Because I read through that going,
Yeah. So the people who use it,
are very, yeah.
the people who use it live in Thornbury.
Well, and then there was
And
that
then-
last thing that said, if you had to cut service
Yeah.
to ensure your taxes aren't increased, the library was like in the third bottom of, we want to keep our current level. Like,
What do you mean? What did that?
so there was a chart, right? The
Yeah.
very last question in the survey was, if we had to cut services in order to not increase taxes, which services would you want to keep? Well, and then they put it in priority, and the library was the third lowest of
What they want to keep.
what they would be happy with cutting the library service.
No, what they would want to keep, lowest of what they want to keep.
Yeah, okay.
Different
Yeah,
than,
okay,
I,
okay. They didn't
very
talk about
different than
big
I want to
pieces, right,
cut.
it was
It's,
keep, yeah.
it's, what are the things you absolutely want to keep?
Yes,
How many were in the list?
20 something, or-
Yeah.
We were third
So-
lowest?
yeah.
Yeah, but we were
There's-
probably
yeah.
Maslow's hierarchy, right? Like we have to cut water.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me
Fire.
of the MRFA stuff too, where like
There it is.
people don't fully understand what services the library
Exactly.
actually provides.
Yes.
So even if
Yeah.
like some of the stuff on here is recreation related or like community events and activity, it's like, well, that is library services to me anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'd be cutting.
they were thinking of
cutting
just the
access
sort
to
of
yours.
core going to the library and taking
Yes.
the book out.
Yes,
If you're talking about decreasing my fire protection versus going to take a book out, I
Yeah,
would say. don't.
yeah, if I
Yeah,
had,
or-
if
or
I
you
only had
can
a
buy that
dollar,
book.
I want fire protection,
But
which is
the
fair.
fact that it also came out that people were very satisfied with the current library,
I think that's the thing, that's the, you know, the contra to what you're saying is.
yeah, I took that as a bit of a, like, I would like them to say, we love the library, but we want more.
yeah.
But they don't know what more
There's-
they can
and
have.
there's-
That's right.
That's
yeah.
the
Exactly right.
education.
And there isn't a question that says, would you want another library branch?
No, there wasn't anything.
Or
in that.
like these services.
Yeah.
So I think based on his note, the consultants are gonna come back and do just, I guess, more of an analysis than the numbers that are presented here, just more statements. That was my understanding. Or he's preparing a presentation to council. So there's no formal presentation yet. So I think it might be good for us to say, here are some of our observations. Yet again, I saw something which was so bad. I mean, I really wonder about myself. On the 2022, so I was comparing changes.
Yeah.
And on the 2022 frequency of use, the legend had, the color coding legend didn't match the actual chart. So if you read it
Yeah.
one way, so for the example, if you read it one way, like if it was just like in order to, as it appeared on the legend,
Yeah,
87% of respondents used the skate park. If you went by the color coding, 87% never use it.
oh.
So, and in our case, it's quite, it can be,
Yeah.
it's, you know, does change our perspective, our understanding of how often people are using it. So anyway,
Yes,
I reached
yes,
out and
that's
thank
true.
goodness to Alan, who's working, he was like, oh, great catch. So he's updated it, but I think at the end, I know, I know,
Yeah.
my God, I do
I
worry
don't
about
know.
myself.
Do you ever get to sleep?
I do, it's just crazy, I need a job. Um,
benefiting.
yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, frequency is up, right? People
Yeah.
using our
So the
services
frequency that
more.
people are happy.
People are happy. It's, you know, we can go in, we could look and say, are more people, are they coming monthly now? Challenge again is like 2022 is weekly or bi-weekly, 2024 is weekly or monthly.
Well, here's our return on
Whatever, but
investment.
anyway.
Here's our clients who are healthy but happy, but here's what we can do.
Yeah,
I guess
so I
I
think
like that we
that's-
could
yeah.
expand this, so they.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, in that type of survey, do you want yourself to come out that you need help, or do you want to come out looking really good? When you want to go forward and
I think
ask for
we're
money?
happy looking really good because look, we're doing really well with one building.
And everybody's happy, so we're just gonna leave it
Imagine if
alone.
we had 2 buildings.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna.
But
anyways,
anyway,
move us
yeah,
along
yeah,
here.
yeah, so.
We do have to quickly, look at the key messages. So I think, the action plan that I don't know, can we say we finalized it or we've,
Adopted a new format?
adopted a new format?
And the final will be coming for approval next board meeting.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So that's that, accessibility.
Took us for.
Yeah, finally got that to the,
Yeah, we reviewed
Yeah,
accessibility report of CHD and combined it with the recommendations from the Ellie Shore and have
Approved implementation.
approved.
Yeah. Implementation of
Yeah, I moved
a number
to,
of changes.
yeah,
That's like nice.
That's a really good key message.
yeah, and
I'll put the risk assessment,
okay,
just because it's like an organizational excellence piece.
The
and
risk assessment was approved or accepted by the board?
Yeah, it's completed.
we didn't approve it,
Yeah, so accepted.
Present.
yeah. Was received, we received and discussed the risk assessment.
The board is happy that our risk assessment showed, but I don't know what you
Such
said.
strength or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can word that.
Yeah, and then should we say something about next steps with finance, like or should we leave that?
I would leave that.
Okay.
You
Oh,
could
we
say the board is concerned
approved
with
the budget.
finance, but.
We approved the
Yeah,
budget.
for the
Yeah.
budget, yeah,
Okay.
the 2025 budget.
I
Okay.
could mention something about,
We looking at reserves and,
no, I'm thinking just for community, well, we've got accessibility report for community hubs. I could highlight the civic engagement workshop for youth climate
Yes,
action.
that would be great.
yeah,
Oops.
what about the Death Cafe that's going to be offered?
I don't know.
I'm very interested in that. I won't be here. Look, someone.
Oh, well, I guess, looking at the CEO service report, there are a few things I could pull out of here if you want. I did include, actually as an attachment, the town's newsletter, so our vote results were supposed to go out in that newsletter. It didn't make it in, so it's going in the next one. So I thought, whatever, now we're gonna be in 2, so
Good.
I won't be upset about that. But in the town newsletter that gets mailed out quarterly to all residents, we had an entire feature on Natasha, who is
Yeah.
one of our
Yeah.
library specialists. And then we also had ad space, that they gave us underneath that entire page. So we had a full page dedicated to us, in the town's newsletter. And then we'll have another feature
So
for
that's great.
our
I think
votes.
that I would like to say that we appreciate the town's support of the library and including our stories in the
Newsletters,
Yeah.
including in the tourism strategy, like that we're,
I'll do a town library collaboration and maybe just put a
Yeah.
few things in there.
yeah, I like that.
Well, this was interesting too. I ran out of time. I did not have time to design an ad, so the town's graphic designer said, "Oh, I'll do it." Like, okay, here's all the content. She just threw it together. Thanks.
Yeah.
That is great, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a good call. I think I would like for the board to thank Ken Hay for his, long tenured service and wish him well in his next.
Do we want to pass a motion?
Sure. Sure, you want to, I don't know, Ken, as a board.
I was going to include his retirement in the CEO report for March, but we could do it now. Like, I know all the messaging went out.
Well, I was just gonna say because it is public and that he's gone.
I don't know, do we need to have a formal motion or should we, or does
Have
that?
to.
I was just suggesting in the key messages. that-
Okay, I'll
that the
put that in
board
there.
Yeah,
Would like
Thanks
to
for
acknowledge his
yeah,
And
service
he'll be
and
back
thank
to
him.
celebrate with us
Yeah.
in December.
Oh, great.
okay.
Yeah, I wish you well.
Okay, so I need a mover for the key messages. We're leaving some of the wording to you, Jen, but,
Okay,
okay, Carol, seconded by Marie. Okay. All in favor? I'm 10 minutes late. So our next board meeting is scheduled for April 17th. And, we'll see you then.
thanks.
Okay, so, can I have a mover to adjourn? Joanne, Chris hasn't, and,
I'll second.
I don't know, we don't have a seconder there. They call in favor, yeah. Yeah,
Okay, so.
Okay.
Four of
Thank
nine.
you. So the meeting is adjourned, yeah, well, no, 4:10.